The divorce was supposed to be simple. Sign the papers, disappear forever. But when Lena Carter walked into that boardroom 8 months pregnant, carrying the secret child of the city's most dangerous man, everything shattered. Adrian Volkov, feared, ruthless, untouchable, stood frozen as his world collapsed in a single glance. She thought she could hide. She thought she could run. She was wrong. Now, with enemies circling and old wounds bleeding fresh, their past becomes a battleground where love and survival collide. Stay until the end to see how far love can fall and still rise again. Hit that like button and drop your city in the comments. Let's see how far this story reaches across the world. The elevator ride to the 42nd floor felt like descending into hell rather than ascending toward freedom. Lena Carter pressed one hand against the cool steel wall, steadying herself as another wave of exhaustion rolled through her body. 8 months pregnant, and every part of her screamed for rest. Her swollen feet crammed into the only professional shoes that still fit, her lower back burning with constant grinding pain, her entire body heavy with the weight of secrets she'd carried too long. But today would end it all. Today, she would sign the divorce papers, collect the settlement her lawyer had negotiated, and disappear into a life Adrian Volkov would never touch again. The elevator chimed, a soft, mechanical sound that felt too cheerful for what awaited her. The doors slid open to reveal the executive floor of Volkov Enterprises, all gleaming marble and floor-to-ceiling windows that showcased the city sprawling below like a kingdom Adrian ruled with an iron fist. Lena had been here before. 6 months into their marriage, when she'd still believed love could change a man like him, when she'd still worn hope like armor, thinking the gentle moments between them, rare as they were, meant something real. She knew better now. Mrs. Volkov, the receptionist, knew, Lena noted, probably one of dozens who'd cycled through this position, looked up with a professional smile that faltered when she took in Lena's appearance, the cheap maternity dress bought from a thrift store, the exhaustion carved into every line of her face, the very visible evidence of pregnancy that made the woman's eyes widen with poorly concealed shock. Ms. Carter, Lena corrected quietly. She hadn't been Mrs. Volkov for 8 months, not since the night she'd packed a single bag and walked out of their penthouse with nothing but the clothes on her back and the child growing inside her. I have an appointment with the legal department. Of course. The receptionist's fingers flew across her keyboard, but Lena caught the nervous glance toward the closed double doors at the end of the hall, Adrian's office, where he built empires and destroyed anyone who stood in his way. Conference room 3, down the hall to your left. They're waiting for you. They, not he. Adrian wouldn't be here. He'd promised through their lawyers. A cold, impersonal message that had somehow hurt more than his anger would have. He would sign remotely. She would sign in person. Their marriage would end the same way it had functioned, with distance and lawyers between them, clean and clinical. Lena told herself she was relieved. She told herself the twisting sensation in her chest was just the baby pressing against her ribs. She told herself a lot of lies these days. The conference room was exactly as she remembered. All dark wood and leather chairs, a massive table polished to a mirror shine, and windows that made you feel like you were floating above the city, like you were untouchable, like consequences were for other people. 2 lawyers waited inside, both in suits that cost more than Lena had earned in 6 months of waitressing since she'd left. They stood when she entered, professional courtesy that felt like mockery given how her shoes pinched and her dress pulled tight across her belly. Ms. Carter, the older one, Henderson, she remembered, Adrian's personal attorney for 15 years, gestured to a chair. Please, sit. Can we get you anything? Water? Tea? I'm fine. Lena lowered herself into the chair with as much dignity as she could manage, which wasn't much. The baby kicked, a flutter of movement that made her breath catch. Let's just get this over with. Henderson exchanged a glance with the other lawyer, Simmons, younger, sharper, watching Lena with the kind of clinical interest that made her skin crawl. They knew. Of course they knew. Adrian Volkov's lawyers knew everything, but they said nothing. Of course. Henderson opened a leather portfolio, withdrawing a stack of documents that represented the death of the marriage Lena had once believed would save her. Everything is in order, Mr. Volkov has signed all necessary. The door burst open. Lena's head snapped up, her heart suddenly thundering against her ribs. Adrian Volkov filled the doorway like a storm made flesh. 6'3" of raw power wrapped in a charcoal suit that probably cost more than a car, he looked exactly as Lena remembered, and nothing like the man she'd left. Broader somehow, though that might have been the authority he wore like a second skin. His dark hair was slightly longer, touched with silver at the temples that hadn't been there before. Sharp cheekbones, strong jaw, and those eyes, ice blue and burning with an intensity that had once made her feel like the only woman in the world. Now they just made her feel trapped. "Mr. Volkov." Henderson shot to his feet. "I wasn't expecting... We agreed that you would... Get out." Adrian's voice was low, controlled, the kind of quiet that made smart people obey immediately. Both lawyers grabbed their portfolios and fled, the door clicking shut behind them with a finality that made Lena's pulse spike. And then they were alone. Adrian hadn't moved from the doorway. He stood frozen, his gaze locked on Lena with an expression she couldn't read. Shock, anger, something raw and bleeding beneath the surface that made her want to look away. But she didn't. She'd spent 8 months learning to be brave. She wouldn't break now. "You're not supposed to be here," she said, proud of how steady her voice sounded, even as her hands trembled in her lap. "We agreed. Stand up." It wasn't a request. Lena's chin lifted. "Excuse me?" "Stand. Up." Each word was carved from ice. For a moment she considered refusing, considered telling him he had no right to order her around anymore, that she'd left his world and his control behind. But something in his eyes stopped her, something desperate beneath the fury that made her chest tighten. Slowly, carefully, she pushed herself to her feet. Adrian's gaze dropped to her stomach. The sound that escaped him was barely human, a sharp intake of breath like he'd been punched. His face went white, then red, emotions flickering across his features too fast to name. Shock, denial, rage, something that looked almost like no. Lena couldn't let herself think it, couldn't let herself hope. "How long?" His voice was hoarse now, stripped of its usual command. "Adrian, how long?" The roar made her flinch, made the baby kick in protest. 8 months. The words came out as a whisper. "I found out the night I left." The silence that followed was suffocating. Adrian moved then, stalking across the conference room with predatory grace that made every instinct scream at Lena to run. But she held her ground, even when he stopped inches away, close enough that she could smell his cologne, cedar and smoke, achingly familiar. "You left." His hand rose, trembling slightly as it hovered near her stomach. "You left, and you've been carrying my child for 8 months, and you never—" "Don't!" Lena stepped back, putting the chair between them. "Don't you dare make this about you. You don't get to be angry. You don't get to—" "You were going to disappear." The realization hit him like a physical blow. "The divorce papers, the settlement. You were going to take my child and vanish." "Your child?" Bitter laughter escaped her. "This baby stopped being about you the moment I walked out that door. Like hell it did." Adrian's hand slammed down on the table, the crack of flesh on wood making Lena jump. "You don't get to make that choice. You don't get to—" "I get to make every choice." The words burst out of her, months of fear and anger and desperate survival pouring into them. "You want to know why I left, Adrian? You want to know why I ran the moment I found out I was pregnant?" "Yes." The word was raw. "I want to know why the woman I loved—" "Because you would have trapped me." Lena's voice broke. "Because you would have used this baby to chain me to you forever. Because I saw what you did to Marcus Trent when he tried to leave your organization. How you destroyed his business, his reputation, his entire life, because he dared to walk away from you." Adrian's jaw clenched. "That was different. He betrayed—" "I betrayed you too, didn't I?" Tears burned in Lena's eyes, but she refused to let them fall. "I left. I broke my vows. I took your child and ran. So tell me, Adrian, what punishment did you have planned for me?" The question hung between them like a knife. "Never." The word came out strangled. "I would never— Lena, you're not—" He ran a hand through his hair, the gesture so achingly familiar it made her chest hurt. "You were different. You are different." "Was I?" She laughed, the sound hollow. "Or did you just hide it better because you wanted me to stay?" Adrian's expression shattered. For one brief moment, the mask slipped, and Lena saw straight through to the man beneath, the one who'd held her during thunderstorms because she hated the lightning, who'd learned to make her grandmother's soup recipe when she was sick, who'd once looked at her like she was the only real thing in his manufactured world. Then the mask slammed back into place. "Sit down." His voice was controlled again, dangerous in its calm. "We need to talk." "No." Lena grabbed her purse. Cheap pleather from the dollar store, so different from the designer bags he used to buy her. "I'm leaving. I'll have my lawyer contact yours about the papers." "Lena." "Goodbye, Adrian." She made it 3 steps toward the door before his hand caught her wrist, gentle, so careful not to hurt, and somehow that was worse than force would have been. "Please." The word sounded like it was killing him. "Please don't go." Lena closed her eyes against the wave of longing that swept through her. 8 months. 8 months of running, hiding, working double shifts at a diner where the manager screamed at her for moving too slow. 8 months of sleeping in a studio apartment where the heat barely worked, and the neighbors fought through paper-thin walls. 8 months of being so tired she could barely think, so scared she jumped at shadows, so desperately alone that sometimes she caught herself reaching for her phone to call the one person she could never call again. And here he was, right here, close enough to touch. "Let me go," she whispered. "I can't." His other hand came up to cup her face, thumb brushing across her cheekbone with devastating tenderness. "Lena, I can't. I've spent 8 months trying to find you. 8 months going insane, wondering if you were safe, if you were happy, if you—" His voice cracked. "If you ever thought about me." "Every day." The confession escaped before she could stop it. "I thought about you every single day, and I hated myself for it." Something in Adrian's expression broke open. "Then stay. Just for an hour. Let me explain. The world tilted. Lena felt it first as a wave of dizziness that made her grab Adrian's arm for support. Then as a sharp, twisting pain low in her abdomen that made her gasp. Then as something warm and wet spreading down her legs. "Lena!" Adrian's voice seemed to come from very far away. "Lena, what's wrong?" She looked down. Blood. Too much blood soaking through her dress, pooling on the expensive conference room floor. "No," she whispered. "No, no, no." Her legs gave out. Adrian caught her before she hit the ground, his arms banding around her with desperate strength. "Henderson!" His roar could probably be heard 3 floors down. "Call an ambulance now!" "The baby!" Lena clutched at his shirt, panic clawing through her chest. "Adrian, the baby!" "Shh! I've got you." He was lowering her to the floor, his jacket already stripped off and pressed between her legs to slow the bleeding. "I've got you, sweetheart. You're going to be fine. Both of you are going to be fine." "You can't know that." Tears streamed down her face now, unstoppable. "You can't." "I know." His hand found hers, squeezing tight. "I know because I won't allow anything else. Do you hear me? I won't lose you, either of you." The conference room door crashed open. Henderson and Simmons, both white-faced with shock. "Ambulance is 3 minutes out. Not good enough." Adrian was already scooping Lena into his arms, moving with the kind of controlled speed that came from a man who'd trained for combat. "My car is faster. Simmons, you drive. Henderson, call doctor. Rashid at Presbyterian and tell her we're coming in hot. Tell her to have a team ready." Adrian. Lena's vision was starting to blur at the edges, gray creeping in from all sides. "I'm scared." "I know." He pressed his lips to her forehead, and his voice when he spoke again was the gentlest she'd ever heard it. "But I'm here now. I'm here, and I'm not letting you go. Never again." The elevator was a blur. The lobby was a streak of shocked faces and gasped exclamations. Then they were outside, the cold autumn air hitting Lena's face like a slap, and Adrian was settling her into the back of a black SUV with leather seats and tinted windows. "Stay with me." His hand cradled her face as Simmons peeled out of the parking garage, tires screaming. "Lena, stay with me." Trying, the word was getting harder to form. "Adrian, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry for—" "No." He cut her off, fierce and absolute. "You have nothing to apologize for. Nothing. Do you understand me?" But she did. She had so much to apologize for. For running, for hiding, for being so scared of loving him that she'd nearly destroyed them both trying to escape it. I love you. The confession fell from her lips like a dying breath. I never stopped. I tried, but I never... I know. Adrian's voice was breaking. I know, sweetheart. I love you too, so much it's killing me. So just hold on, okay? Just hold on and we'll figure everything else out later. The city blurred past the windows. Lena felt Adrian's hand gripping hers like a lifeline, felt his other arm wrapped around her shoulders, holding her against his chest where she could hear his heart thundering. Felt the baby, their baby, moving weakly inside her. Please, she thought, though she wasn't sure who she was begging, please, let them both be okay. Presbyterian Hospital rose up before them like a fortress. Simmons hadn't even stopped completely before Adrian was out of the car. Lena cradled against his chest, bellowing for help. Rashid! Where the hell is Dr. Rashid? A woman in scrubs appeared, mid-40s and competent-looking, her dark eyes sharp as they assessed the situation. Mr. Volkov, Trauma Bay 2 is ready. Get her on the gurney. I'm not letting her go. You don't have a choice. Dr. Rashid's voice was firm, but not unkind. You can come with us, but you need to put her down so my team can work. For a moment, Lena thought Adrian might refuse. His arms tightened around her, his expression promising violence to anyone who tried to take her from him. Then Lena's hand touched his cheek. It's okay, she whispered. Let them help. The tenderness in his eyes as he looked at her nearly broke her heart. Okay. He lowered her onto the gurney with infinite care, then immediately grabbed her hand again. But I'm not leaving, not for a second. Dr. Rashid's gaze flicked between them, something knowing in her expression. Wouldn't dream of asking you to. Let's move, people. The hospital swallowed them. A chaos of fluorescent lights and urgent voices and hands pulling at Lena's clothes, replacing them with a hospital gown. Monitors beeped. IV lines went in. Someone pressed an ultrasound wand against her stomach, and Lena held her breath, terrified of what they wouldn't find. Fetal heartbeat present. The technician's voice was carefully neutral. 140 beats per minute. Within normal range but showing signs of distress. Placental abruption, Dr. Rashid announced, her hands already moving with practiced efficiency. Partial separation. We need to get her to OR now. Prep for emergency C-section. No. The word burst from Lena. It's too early. She's not ready. She's 32 weeks and she's in distress. Dr. Rashid's eyes were kind but unyielding. If we don't deliver now, we could lose both of you. The world seemed to stop. Lena's gaze found Adrian's. He looked shattered, terrified, but when he spoke, his voice was steady. What do you need from us? I need her to agree to the surgery, and I need you to trust me to bring both of them through this safely. Adrian, Lena's fingers tightened on his. What if... No. He leaned in close, his forehead pressing against hers. No what ifs. You're going to be fine. Our daughter is going to be fine, and when you wake up, I'm going to be right there waiting for you. Promise? I swear it. His lips brushed hers, gentle as a prayer. On everything I am, everything I have. I'm not going anywhere. Dr. Rashid was already moving, the gurney starting to roll. Adrian walked beside it, never releasing Lena's hand, even when they reached the double doors marked surgery, authorized personnel only. Mr. Volkov, a nurse began. Don't. One word, lethal as a bullet. I go where she goes. The nurse looked at Dr. Rashid, who sighed. Get him scrubbed in. And someone find him surgical scrubs that don't make him look like he's about to commit murder. Thank you, Adrian said quietly. Don't thank me yet. Dr. Rashid's expression was grim. Just pray I'm as good as you're paying me to be. They prepped Lena for surgery with terrifying efficiency. Epidural placed, vitals monitored, surgical drapes positioned. Through it all, Adrian stayed at her head, one hand gripping hers, the other stroking her hair with a gentleness that seemed impossible from a man who'd built an empire on intimidation. I'm scared, Lena whispered as the anesthesia began to take hold, making everything fuzzy at the edges. I know. Adrian's voice was the last thing she heard clearly. But I'm right here. And I'm not leaving. Not ever again. The world went soft and distant. Lena felt pressure, but no pain as doctor. Rashid worked, felt Adrian's hand squeezing hers in a rhythm that might have been his heartbeat, or might have been a prayer. Felt time stretching and compressing in impossible ways until a cry, thin and reedy but unmistakably alive. "It's a girl," Dr. Rashid announced, and the triumph in her voice said everything. 5 pounds, 2 ounces, APGAR score of 7. She's small, but she's a fighter. Adrian made a sound Lena had never heard from him before, something between a sob and a laugh, raw with relief and wonder. "Can I see her?" Lena's words were slurred but desperate. "Please, can I—" Briefly, a nurse appeared at her side, holding a tiny bundle wrapped in blankets. "Then she needs to go to the NICU for observation." Lena's first glimpse of her daughter stole her breath. So small, so impossibly, devastatingly perfect. Dark hair plastered to her tiny head, her face scrunched up in outrage at being dragged into the world too early. But her eyes, when they opened for just a moment, were the exact shade of blue as her father's. "Hi, baby girl," Lena whispered, tears streaming down her face. "I'm your mama, and I already love you more than anything in this world." Adrian's hand came into view, one finger extended to stroke their daughter's cheek with heartbreaking gentleness. "And I'm your dad," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "And I'm going to spend the rest of my life making sure you and your mother are safe and happy and loved." The baby's tiny hand wrapped around his finger. Something in Adrian's expression transformed, cracked open, and rebuilt in the space of a heartbeat. Lena saw it happen, saw the exact moment fatherhood rewrote everything he was. "She's perfect," he breathed. "She is." Lena couldn't look away from her daughter's face. "Adrian, I am sorry." The words burst from him. "For everything. For not being the man you needed. For making you so scared you had to run. For— We'll talk later." Lena's eyes were drifting closed, exhaustion and medication pulling her under. "Right now, just stay. Both of you. Please stay. Always." Adrian pressed a kiss to her forehead. "I promise you, Lena. I'm done being the man you had to run from. From now on, I'm going to be the man you can't imagine living without." The last thing Lena saw before darkness claimed her was Adrian watching their daughter being carried away to the NICU, his expression a mixture of love and fierce determination that promised the world was about to change. For better or for worse, they were in this together now. And nothing, not their past, not his empire, not the dangers circling closer than either of them knew, would tear them apart again. Lena woke to the rhythmic beeping of monitors and the antiseptic smell of hospital air. For a moment, she couldn't remember where she was or why her body felt like it had been hollowed out and stitched back together. Then it all came rushing back. The blood, the panic, Adrian's face white with terror, and the thin, beautiful cry of their daughter being born too soon. "Easy." Adrian's voice, rough with exhaustion, came from somewhere to her left. "Don't try to move yet." Lena's head turned, and there he was, sprawled in an uncomfortable-looking chair pulled close to her bedside, still wearing surgical scrubs that were too small across his shoulders. His hair stood up in wild angles like he'd been running his hands through it for hours. Dark circles shadowed his eyes, and stubble covered his jaw, making him look almost human instead of the polished, untouchable figure who ruled boardrooms and backrooms with equal authority. He looked wrecked. He looked beautiful. "The baby." Lena's voice came out as a croak. "Is she—" "She's perfect." Adrian was on his feet instantly, one hand finding hers, the other stroking hair back from her face with devastating gentleness. 5 pounds, 2 ounces of absolute perfection. The NICU team says she's breathing on her own. All her vitals are stable, and she's already proving to be as stubborn as her mother. Relief hit Lena so hard she felt tears spring to her eyes. "I want to see her." "Soon." Adrian's thumb brushed across her knuckles. "Dr. Rashid wants you to rest a few more hours first. You lost a lot of blood, Lena. You scared the hell out of me." The rawness in his voice made her chest ache. "I'm sorry." "Don't." The word came out sharp, then he softened it with a sigh. "Don't apologize. Not for this. Not for anything that happened today." Lena studied his face, trying to read the emotions flickering across it too fast to name. How long was I out? 6 hours. Adrian settled back into the chair but kept hold of her hand like he was afraid she'd disappear if he let go. Dr. Rashid said the surgery went perfectly. No complications. The placental abruption was significant, but they got our daughter out before his voice cracked. Before it became critical. Our daughter. The words hung between them, heavy with implications neither of them was ready to unpack. Have you been here the whole time? Lena asked quietly. Where else would I be? I don't know. Running your empire, destroying your enemies. All the things Adrian Volkov does when he's not sitting in uncomfortable hospital chairs. A ghost of a smile crossed his face. My empire can wait. My enemies can destroy themselves for all I care right now. The only thing that matters is in this room and down the hall in the NICU. Lena wanted to believe him. Part of her, the foolish, hopeful part that had loved him despite everything, desperately wanted to believe that the birth of their daughter had changed something fundamental. But she'd learned the hard way that Adrian's promises were built on shifting sand. We need to talk, she said. I know. Adrian's grip on her hand tightened. But not right now. Right now you need to rest and heal. Everything else can wait. Can it? Lena pulled her hand free, ignoring the flash of hurt in his eyes. Because from where I'm lying, nothing has changed, Adrian. You're still the same man I ran from. I'm still the same woman who couldn't survive in your world. And now we have a daughter caught in the middle of all this mess. Everything has changed. The intensity in his voice made her breath catch. You think I don't know that? The moment I saw you walk into that conference room carrying my child, the moment I heard her cry, Lena, my entire world shifted on its axis. Words are easy, she whispered. You were always good with words when you wanted something. Adrian flinched like she'd slapped him. Is that what you think this is? Me manipulating you? I don't know what to think anymore. Exhaustion washed over her, bone deep and overwhelming. I'm so tired, Adrian. Tired of running, tired of being scared, tired of not knowing if loving you is going to destroy me. Then stop running. He leaned forward, close enough that she could see the gold flecks in his blue eyes. Stay. Let me prove to you that I can be different, that I can be the man you need, the father our daughter deserves. And if you can't, then you walk away with my blessing and enough money to give our daughter the best life possible. The words seemed to cost him. I'll sign away custody rights if that's what it takes for you to feel safe. I'll disappear from both your lives if that's what you want. Lena searched his face for deception and found only raw, bleeding honesty. You'd do that? If it meant you were happy and safe? Yes. Adrian's hand came up to cup her cheek and she was too tired to pull away. I'd do anything for you. I thought you knew that by now. I knew you'd do anything to keep me, Lena corrected softly. That's not the same thing. The distinction landed like a blow. Adrian's hand dropped, and for a moment his mask slipped completely, revealing the devastation beneath. You really think I'm that much of a monster? I think you're a complicated man who loves in complicated ways. Lena's eyes drifted closed, and I think I'm too tired to figure out if those ways are enough. Silence settled between them, heavy and uncomfortable. Then Adrian spoke, his voice barely above a whisper. When I couldn't find you for 8 months, I nearly lost my mind. I hired investigators, called in favors, turned the city upside down looking for any trace of you. Do you know what I found? Lena's eyes opened. What? Nothing. You vanished so completely it was like you'd never existed. Something that might have been pride flickered across his face. You covered your tracks better than professionals I've worked with. Changed your name, paid cash for everything, stayed off social media, worked under the table. You disappeared like a ghost. Huh? I learned from the best. There was no humor in her voice. I watched you make people disappear for years. I just never thought I'd be using those lessons to hide from you. I deserved that. Adrian ran a hand through his hair. I deserved all of it. The running, the hiding, even the months of not knowing if you were alive or dead. I drove you to it. Yes, Lena said simply. You did. I can't take it back. His gaze held hers, unflinching. I can't undo the things I did that made you so scared you had to run the moment you found out you were pregnant, but I can try to do better, if you'll let me. Before Lena could respond, the door opened and Dr. Rashid stepped in, looking significantly more rested than the last time Lena had seen her. "Good, you're awake. How are you feeling?" "Like I got hit by a truck," Lena admitted. "That's about right." Dr. Rashid moved to check her vitals with practiced efficiency. "You gave us quite a scare, Ms. Carter. Placental abruptions are no joke, especially in the third trimester. But the baby's okay? Your daughter is doing remarkably well, all things considered." Dr. Rashid smiled. "She's breathing on her own, maintaining her body temperature, and already demanding to be fed every 2 hours like clockwork. She's small, but she's fierce." "She gets that from her mother," Adrian said quietly. "Doctor." Rashid's eyes flicked between them, professional and assessing. "I understand the situation here is complicated, but that baby needs both her parents right now. She's going to be in the NICU for at least a few weeks, maybe longer depending on how she develops, which means you two need to figure out how to be in the same room without the kind of stress that nearly killed Ms. Carter today." "That wasn't," Lena started. "The abruption was likely caused by a combination of physical and emotional stress," Dr. Rashid interrupted firmly. "Your blood pressure when you came in was dangerously high. You've been working yourself to exhaustion, eating poorly, and living in a constant state of fight or flight. At a highly charged emotional confrontation, and your body simply gave out." Shame washed over Lena. "I didn't mean to—" "Nobody means to have a medical crisis," Dr. Rashid's voice gentled. "But moving forward, you need to take better care of yourself, which means rest, proper nutrition, and as little stress as possible. She'll have it." Adrian's tone left no room for argument. "Whatever she needs." "Good." Dr. Rashid turned to him. "And you need to understand that your daughter's mother is recovering from major surgery. She needs support, not pressure. Can you do that?" "Yes." Adrian's gaze never left Lena. "Whatever she needs," he repeated. Dr. Rashid nodded, satisfied. "All right. I'll have the nurses bring you some food, Ms. Carter. Once you've eaten and rested a bit more, we can take you down to see your daughter." She left, and the silence that followed felt different somehow, less combative, more uncertain. "You've been working yourself to exhaustion?" Adrian's voice was carefully neutral, but Lena could hear the anger simmering beneath it. "Where? Doing what?" "It doesn't matter. Like hell it doesn't." The neutral tone cracked. "Lena, you were 8 months pregnant and apparently working so hard you made yourself sick. That matters." "I was waitressing," she said flatly, "at a diner in Queens, double shifts most days because the tips were better during peak hours." Adrian's face went white, then red. "You were on your feet for 12-hour shifts while pregnant?" "I needed the money." "You had money!" The words exploded out of him. "I made sure of it. I set up accounts in your name, transferred funds. I didn't touch any of it." Lena's chin lifted. "I didn't want your money, Adrian. I wanted to do this on my own." "On your own." He laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Right. Because nearly killing yourself and our daughter is so much better than accepting help from me. It was better than being trapped." "I never trapped you." "Didn't you?" Lena sat up straighter despite the pull of surgical stitches. "The penthouse you insisted I move into after our third date. The job at your company that I didn't apply for but somehow got anyway. The credit cards in my name that you paid off every month. The security team that followed me everywhere I went. You didn't trap me, Adrian. You built a gilded cage and made it so comfortable I didn't realize I was locked inside until it was too late." Adrian looked like she'd gutted him. "I was protecting you." "From what?" "I was a waitress from Queens. I didn't have enemies. I didn't need protection." "You had me." His voice dropped to something raw and honest. "And anyone connected to me is a target. I was trying to keep you safe. By controlling every aspect of my life? By loving you the only way I knew how." The confession hung between them, sharp and bleeding. Lena's breath caught. "That's not love, Adrian. That's obsession." "Maybe." He stood abruptly, pacing to the window like he couldn't bear to sit still anymore. "Maybe you're right. Maybe I don't know the difference between the two. But I'm trying to learn. For you. For our daughter." "Trying isn't enough." Lena's voice broke. "I need guarantees. I need to know that if I let you back into my life, into our daughter's life, you won't suffocate us both." Adrian turned from the window, and the expression on his face made Lena's heart stutter. Gone was the polished businessman, the feared power broker. In his place stood a man stripped bare, vulnerable in a way she'd never seen him. "I don't have guarantees to give you," he said quietly. "I don't know how to be anything other than what I am. But I swear to you, Lena, I will spend every day for the rest of my life trying to be worthy of you and that little girl down the hall, even if it means tearing down everything I built to do it." "You can't tear down your empire, Adrian. It's who you are." "No." He crossed back to her, dropping to one knee beside the bed so they were eye level. "Our daughter is who I am now. You are who I am. Everything else is just noise." Lena wanted to believe him, desperately wanted to believe that the man kneeling before her could really change, could really become someone she could trust with her heart and her child's future. But belief and reality were two different things. "I need time," she whispered. "Then take it." Adrian's hand found hers again. "Take all the time you need. I'll be here. Not pushing, not demanding, just here." A knock at the door interrupted whatever Lena might have said next. A nurse poked her head in, smiling. "Miss Carter, the NICU team says if you're feeling up to it, you can come visit your daughter now." Every thought fled Lena's mind except one. My baby. Yes. She was already pushing herself upright, ignoring the sharp pull of incision sites. "Yes, please." "Whoa, easy." Adrian was there instantly, supporting her weight as the nurse hurried over with a wheelchair. Let's not undo all of Dr. Rashid's excellent work. Getting into the wheelchair was an exercise in humiliation and pain, but Lena gritted her teeth through it. Nothing, not pride, not pain, not the complicated tangle of feelings for the man hovering protectively at her side, was going to keep her from her daughter 1 second longer. The journey to the NICU felt both endless and too short. Adrian walked beside her wheelchair, one hand resting on her shoulder, like he couldn't bear not to touch her. The nurse navigated them through a maze of corridors, past rooms where other families were living their own dramas, until they reached a set of double doors marked with cheerful cartoon animals and strict visiting protocols. "You'll need to scrub in," the nurse explained, showing them to a bank of sinks. 3 minutes, soap up to your elbows. "Mr. Volkov, that includes you." They washed in silence, the only sound the rush of water and the distant beeping of monitors. Lena watched Adrian out of the corner of her eye, the careful, methodical way he scrubbed his hands and forearms, the tension in his shoulders, the almost imperceptible tremor in his fingers. He was terrified, she realized. This man who commanded empires and crushed enemies without blinking was scared to death of meeting his premature daughter. "She's not going to break," Lena said softly. Adrian's hand stilled under the water. "How do you know?" "Because she's ours." Lena met his eyes in the mirror above the sinks. "And if there's one thing we both are, it's survivors." Something in his expression shifted, softened, and sharpened at the same time. "When did you get so wise?" "Around the time I had to figure out how to survive without you." The words landed like a blow, but Adrian just nodded, accepting them. "Teach me," he said. "Teach me how to be strong enough to let you go if that's what you need. I don't know how, but I'll learn." Lena's throat tightened. "Adrian, time's up." The nurse appeared with towels and warm smiles. "Come on, let's go meet that beautiful girl." The NICU was quieter than Lena expected, all soft lighting and hushed voices and tiny isolettes holding tiny humans fighting for their lives. The nurse led them past rows of bassinets to one near the back, and Lena's heart stopped. There she was, so small she barely seemed real, lying on her back with wires and monitors attached to her tiny body. She wore a diaper that looked comically large on her bird-thin legs and a knit cap that kept slipping over her eyes. Her face was scrunched up in what Lena already recognized as indignation at the indignity of being born before she was ready. "Oh," Lena breathed. "Oh, she's perfect." "She is." Adrian's voice was thick with emotion. "She's absolutely perfect." The nurse smiled. "You can touch her. Skin-to-skin contact is excellent for preemies, helps regulate their temperature and heart rate." Lena reached out with trembling hands, her fingers stroking down her daughter's impossibly soft cheek. The baby stirred, making a sound somewhere between a squeak and a protest, and Lena felt her heart crack open and reform around this tiny, fierce creature. "Hi, baby girl," she whispered. "It's Mama. I'm here. I'm right here, and I'm never leaving you. Adrian's hand joined hers, his large palm covering their daughter's entire torso with room to spare. And I'm your dad, he said, wonder saturating every word. And I'm going to make sure you have everything you need, everything you want. I'm going to give you the world. Adrian, Lena's voice held a warning. He looked at her, and his expression was so open it hurt to see. What? It's true. You can't buy her love. I'm not trying to buy it. His thumb stroked across their daughter's tiny hand, and impossibly, the baby's fingers curled around it. Adrian made a sound like he'd been punched. I want her to have everything I didn't. Lena had never asked about Adrian's childhood. In the year they'd been married, he'd kept that part of his life locked away behind walls she'd never been able to breach. But in this moment, with their daughter holding his finger and him looking at her like she was a miracle, those walls cracked. What didn't you have? Lena asked softly. Adrian was quiet for so long she thought he wouldn't answer. Then, safety, stability, a parent who chose me over everything else. The confession made Lena's chest ache. Adrian, my father was a lot like me, he continued, still watching their daughter. Powerful, ruthless, good at making money and enemies in equal measure. And my mother, she tried to leave him when I was 5. Took me and ran, just like you did. Lena's breath caught. What happened? He found us. Adrian's voice was flat, emotionless in the way that meant the emotions were too big to let out. Dragged us both back. Sent my mother to a psychiatric facility for exhaustion and delusions, and spent the next 13 years making sure I never forgot what happens when people try to leave. That's not... Lena's hand found his, squeezing tight. That's not going to happen. You're not him. Aren't I? Adrian's laugh was bitter. I spent 8 months hunting for you. If I'd found you, would I have let you go? Or would I have done exactly what he did? But you didn't find me. No. But he looked at her finally, and the pain in his eyes was devastating. You were smarter than my mother, better at hiding, and maybe that's for the best. Don't say that. Why not? It's true. Adrian turned back to their daughter, watching her breathe with the kind of fierce attention he usually reserved for business negotiations. If you'd stayed, if I'd found you, I would have held on so tight I'd have broken you both. But you got away. You saved yourself and her. So maybe the best thing I can do now is just let you keep running. I don't want to run anymore. The words surprised Lena as much as they seemed to surprise Adrian. I'm tired of running, tired of being scared, tired of our daughter growing up with a father who's just a name on a check. Hope flickered across Adrian's face, fragile and terrifying. What are you saying? I'm saying, Lena took a breath. I'm saying I want to try. Not for us, not yet, but for her. She deserves to have both her parents in her life. Really, in her life. Not as enemies fighting over custody or strangers passing her back and forth like a parcel. Lena, her name sounded like a prayer. I swear to you, I won't. I have conditions. Adrian straightened, and just like that, the businessman was back, sharp, focused, ready to negotiate. Name them. I keep my own apartment, my own space. You don't get to control where I live or how I spend my time. Done. I go back to work when I'm ready. Not at your company. Somewhere I choose, doing something I want to do. Agreed. And if at any point I feel like you're trying to trap me again, trying to control me or manipulate me or build walls around my life, I walk away. With our daughter. And you don't follow. That one hit harder. Adrian's jaw clenched, every line of his body screaming resistance. But when he spoke, his voice was steady. Agreed. Just like that? Just like that. He reached up, brushing a strand of hair from her face. I told you, Lena. I'll do anything to prove I can be the man you need, even if it means letting you go. Lena searched his face for deception and found only weary sincerity. Okay. Okay. Okay, we'll try. She looked down at their daughter, who had fallen asleep with her tiny hand still wrapped around Adrian's finger. For her. We'll figure out how to be parents together. Everything else, we'll take it one day at a time. One day at a time, Adrian repeated. I can do that. A different nurse approached, this one older with kind eyes and competent hands. Ms. Carter, we should get you back to your room. You need rest. But, Lena looked at her daughter, panic rising. I just got here. I can't leave her. She's not going anywhere, the nurse said gently. And you can come back in a few hours. But Dr. Rashid will have my head if I let you overdo it on your first day post-op. Lena wanted to argue, wanted to plant herself beside that isolette, and refused to move. But exhaustion was already pulling at her, making her limbs heavy and her thoughts fuzzy. I'll stay, Adrian said quietly. With our daughter, so she's not alone. The nurse looked like she wanted to argue that too, but something in Adrian's expression stopped her. All right, Mr. Volkov, but you follow all the rules. No touching without washing your hands first. No, I understand. Adrian's attention never left the sleeping baby. I'll follow every rule to the letter. Lena let them wheel her back to her room, but her heart stayed behind in the NICU, split between the daughter she'd just met and the man she'd once loved watching over her. Back in her hospital bed, Lena stared at the ceiling and tried to process everything that had happened in the past 12 hours. This morning, she'd been a terrified woman about to sign divorce papers and disappear. Now she was a mother, recovering from emergency surgery, and tentatively agreeing to let Adrian Volkov back into her life. It felt like insanity. It felt like hope. She must have dozed off because the next thing she knew, soft voices were pulling her back to consciousness. Lena's eyes opened to find Dr. Rashid standing at the foot of her bed, reviewing her chart with a frown. Something wrong? Lena asked, her voice rough with sleep. Dr. Rashid looked up, professional mask in place. Your vitals are improving, which is good, but I'm concerned about your living situation post-discharge. What do you mean? You'll be recovering from major surgery while caring for a premature infant who'll need round-the-clock attention. The apartment address in your file... Dr. Rashid hesitated. I took the liberty of looking into it. 4th floor walk-up in Queens, no elevator, questionable heating. That's not going to work. Shame burned in Lena's chest. It's what I can afford. I understand, which is why I'm recommending you accept Mr. Volkov's offer to stay at his residence during your recovery. He made an offer? About an hour ago. Dr. Rashid's expression was carefully neutral. Full-time nursing staff, physical therapy, nutritionist, anything you need. He's already had contractors start work on a nursery. Of course he had. Because Adrian Volkov didn't know how to help without taking over completely. I can't, Lena said. Can't or won't? Both. Lena pushed herself upright. I appreciate the concern, Dr. Rashid, but I'm not moving into Adrian's penthouse. That's exactly the kind of control I'm trying to avoid. Even if it's better for your daughter? The question hit like a physical blow. That's not fair, Lena whispered. No, it's not. Dr. Rashid's voice softened. But it's reality. Your daughter is going to need extensive care when she's released from the NICU. Feeding every 2 hours, monitoring for complications, possible physical therapy. Can you do all that alone in a 4th floor walk-up while recovering from surgery? Lena wanted to say yes, wanted to insist she could handle anything, that she didn't need Adrian or his resources or his help. But she'd learned something in the past 8 months of struggling alone. Pride didn't keep you warm, and it didn't feed babies. What if there's a middle ground? Lena asked slowly. I'm listening. But what if I stay somewhere close to the hospital? Not Adrian's penthouse, but maybe a hotel or already arranged. Adrian's voice came from the doorway, and both women turned to find him standing there with 2 cups of coffee and an expression that managed to be both triumphant and cautious. Suite at the Carlisle, 3 blocks from the hospital. 2 bedrooms, full kitchen, 24-hour room service. I've taken the liberty of putting it in your name. Lena stared at him. When did you arrange all this? While you were sleeping. He crossed to Dr. Rashid, handing her one of the coffee cups. I figured you'd argue about the penthouse, and I figured you'd be right. So I found an alternative. In your name means you're paying for it, Lena pointed out. I'm paying for my daughter's mother to have a safe place to recover. Adrian's tone brooked no argument. That's not control. That's basic human decency. He's right, Dr. Rashid said. And frankly, Ms. Carter, your health and your daughter's health are my primary concerns. If you want to argue about who pays the bills, do it after you're both stable. Lena looked between them, feeling cornered. I need to think about it. Think fast, Dr. Rashid advised. You'll be discharged in 48 hours. Your daughter will be here for at least 2 more weeks after that, during which time you'll need to be close for feeding and bonding. A hotel suite 3 blocks away makes a lot more sense than Queens. She left, taking her coffee and leaving Lena alone with Adrian. You can't just steamroll me into decisions, Lena said quietly. I'm not trying to. Adrian set his coffee down and moved to sit in the chair beside her bed. I'm trying to solve problems. It's what I do. By throwing money at them? If money solves the problem, then yes. He met her gaze steadily. You need a safe place to recover. Our daughter needs you close while she's in the NICU. I have the resources to make both those things happen. This isn't control, Lena. It's just logistics. Logistics. She laughed, the sound hollow. You're very good at making everything sound reasonable. Because it is reasonable. Adrian leaned forward. But if you truly don't want the hotel suite, I'll cancel it. You can go back to Queens, climb 4 flights of stairs multiple times a day, post-surgery, and commute 2 hours each way to see our daughter. I won't stop you. But you'll judge me for it. No. The word was quiet but firm. I'll worry about you. There's a difference. Lena closed her eyes, trying to sort through the tangle of emotions in her chest. Part of her wanted to refuse on principle, to prove she didn't need his help. But a larger part, the part that was already a mother, already fierce and protective, knew he was right. Fine, she said finally. The hotel's sweet, but it's temporary. Of course. And I pay you back, eventually. If it makes you feel better. It does. Lena opened her eyes. And Adrian? No more surprises, no more arranging things without asking me first. Even if you think they're helpful. Something flickered across his face. Frustration, maybe, or resignation. But when he spoke, his voice was steady. Agreed. From now on, we make decisions together. Together, Lena repeated, testing the word. It felt foreign, dangerous, like stepping onto ice and hoping it would hold. But it also felt like the only path forward that didn't end in either suffocation or isolation. Together, Adrian confirmed. He stood, pressing a gentle kiss to her forehead. Now get some rest. Our daughter is going to want to meet her mama again soon, and you need your strength. He left, and Lena was alone with her thoughts, and the ghost of his kiss burning on her skin. Tomorrow, she'd meet with lawyers and figure out the logistics of co-parenting with a man who lived in a different world. Tomorrow, she'd navigate the complicated waters of letting Adrian help without letting him control. But tonight, she was just a new mother, tired and scared and fiercely in love with a tiny human she'd only just met. And maybe, just maybe, that was enough. 3 days later, Lena stood in the hotel suite Adrian had arranged and tried not to feel like she was surrendering. The Carlisle was exactly the kind of place she'd expected, all understated luxury and perfect service, the sort of establishment where staff appeared before you realized you needed something and disappeared just as quickly. The suite itself was beautiful in that effortless way only money could buy. Cream-colored walls, plush furniture that looked like it had never been sat on, and windows that overlooked a small private garden 3 stories below. It was perfect. Lena hated it. The second bedroom has been set up as a nursery, the concierge was saying, gesturing toward a closed door. Mr. Volkov specified that we should stock it with everything you might need, but if there's anything missing, please don't hesitate to call. Thank you. Lena's voice was polite but distant. She'd perfected this tone over the past 3 days, grateful but not warm, accepting but not welcoming. It was the voice of someone who knew she was being helped but resented needing the help. The concierge left, and Lena was finally alone in her gilded cage. She moved slowly toward the nursery door, her surgical incision pulling with each step. Dr. Rashid had cleared her for discharge with strict instructions. No lifting anything heavier than the baby, no climbing stairs, no strenuous activity for at least 6 weeks. The list of restrictions felt endless, a constant reminder of how vulnerable she was right now. The nursery took her breath away. Soft gray walls, white furniture that looked like it belonged in a magazine spread, and a crib that probably cost more than 3 months of her former rent. Shelves lined with books and toys, a changing table stocked with every supply imaginable, and a rocking chair positioned near the window where light streamed in like liquid gold. It was perfect for a baby who wouldn't be coming home for at least another week. Lena sank into the rocking chair and let herself cry for the first time since the surgery. Quiet, exhausted tears that came from somewhere deeper than grief, from the place where fear and relief and overwhelming love tangled into something too complex to name. Her phone buzzed. A text from Adrian. "How's the suite?" Lena stared at the message for a long moment before typing back, "It's fine, thank you." 3 dots appeared immediately, dancing for several seconds before his response came through. "Heading to the hospital now. Want me to pick you up?" They'd fallen into a routine over the past 3 days. Adrian would arrive at the hospital in the morning, spend a few hours with their daughter, then leave to handle whatever empire building required his attention. Lena would arrive in the afternoon and stay until the NICU staff gently but firmly sent her back to her hospital room to rest. They'd managed to avoid being there at the same time by unspoken agreement, orbiting their daughter like planets afraid to collide. But now Lena was mobile enough to set her own schedule, and avoiding Adrian would become exponentially harder. "I can get there myself," she typed. The response was immediate. "You're 3 days post-surgery. Let me drive you. I'm capable of taking a taxi." "I know you are. I'm asking anyway." Lena closed her eyes, fighting the urge to throw her phone across the room. This was the problem with Adrian. He phrased control as courtesy, made demands sound like requests, and somehow always managed to make her feel unreasonable for wanting independence. But he was also right. The short walk from her hospital room to the NICU had exhausted her yesterday. A taxi ride across 3 blocks followed by navigating the hospital alone would be pushing it. "Fine," she typed, "but I'm paying for gas." Even through text, she could sense his amusement. "It's a company car. Gas is already covered. Then I'm buying you coffee. Deal. I'll be there in 20 minutes. Lena used the time to make herself presentable, brushing her hair, changing into clean clothes that weren't maternity wear, but still hung loose around her still swollen middle, applying just enough makeup to hide the worst of the dark circles under her eyes. She looked like a ghost of herself, pale and drawn, and running on nothing but stubborn will and the desperate need to see her daughter. The knock came exactly 20 minutes later. Adrian stood in the hallway looking unfairly put together in dark jeans and a gray sweater that probably cost more than her entire wardrobe. He'd shaved since yesterday, and his hair was still slightly damp like he'd showered recently. He looked good, rested, like he was sleeping instead of spending every waking moment torn between terror and wonder the way Lena was. "Ready?" he asked. "As I'll ever be." The elevator ride down was silent and awkward. Adrian kept glancing at her like he wanted to say something but couldn't find the words. Lena stared at the descending numbers and tried not to notice how good he smelled, how the warmth of his body next to hers made her want to lean into him the way she used to. The car was waiting at the curb, a sleek black sedan with a driver who nodded politely but didn't speak. Adrian held the door for her and Lena climbed in carefully, trying not to wince at the pull of stitches. "You're in pain," Adrian observed as he slid in beside her. "I'm fine." "Lena, I said I'm fine." She turned to look out the window as the car pulled into traffic. "It's just normal post-surgical discomfort. Nothing to worry about." "Oh, when you're in pain, it's something to worry about. Then you're going to be worried for the next 6 weeks because everything hurts right now." Lena immediately regretted the words. They came out sharper than she'd intended, bitter with exhaustion and frustration. Adrian was quiet for a moment. Then, "What can I do?" "Nothing." Lena closed her eyes. "There's nothing you can do, Adrian. I just have to heal. There has to be something. Better pain medication, physical therapy. You can't fix this with money." She opened her eyes to find him watching her with an expression that was equal parts helpless and determined. "Some things you just have to endure." "I don't know how to do that." The confession came out raw. "I don't know how to watch you hurt and not try to make it stop." "Then you're going to have a hard time being a parent." Lena's voice gentled despite herself. "Because kids get hurt. They fall down, they get sick, they have their hearts broken. and sometimes all you can do is be there while they heal. Adrian looked away, jaw clenched. I'm not good at being helpless. Neither am I. Lena reached out before she could stop herself, her hand finding his. But we're going to have to learn together. His fingers closed around hers, warm and solid and achingly familiar. For the rest of the short drive, they sat in silence, hands clasped between them, like a bridge neither was quite ready to cross. The NICU staff greeted them with warm smiles and gentle efficiency. Over the past 3 days, Lena had learned all their names. Nurse Patricia, with her no-nonsense attitude and surprisingly gentle hands. Nurse James, who sang softly to the babies when he thought no one was listening. Dr. Chen, who checked on their daughter every 4 hours like clockwork. She had a good night, Patricia reported as she led them to their daughter's isolette. Took all her feedings, maintained her temperature, and her oxygen saturation levels are improving. At this rate, we might be able to move her to an open crib in a few days. Lena's heart leaped. Really? Really, Patricia smiled. She's a fighter, this one, determined to prove she doesn't need all this fancy equipment. Their daughter was awake when they reached her, tiny fists waving in what looked like indignation at being confined. She'd grown in just 3 days. Or maybe Lena was just getting better at seeing her as a whole person instead of a terrifying collection of fragile parts. Hi, sweet girl. Lena reached in to stroke her daughter's cheek, marveling at the softness of her skin. Mama's here. The baby turned toward her voice, and Lena's breath caught, every time. Every single time those blue eyes opened, Lena fell in love all over again. Can I hold her? She asked Patricia. Absolutely. Let me get you set up for kangaroo care. 10 minutes later, Lena was settled in a recliner with her daughter tucked against her bare chest, skin to skin under a blanket. The baby was so small, so impossibly light, but her heartbeat was strong and steady against Lena's ribs. Adrian sat in the chair beside them, watching with an expression that made Lena's throat tight. Do you want to turn? She asked quietly. He looked almost afraid. I don't want to disturb her. You won't. Lena shifted slightly, mindful of the wires and monitors. She should know both her parents. Adrian moved like he was approaching something holy, stripping off his sweater with careful movements before settling into the recliner. Patricia helped transfer the baby with practiced ease, and then Adrian was holding his daughter against his chest, looking absolutely terrified. Support her head, Lena instructed softly. And relax. She can feel if you're tense. I don't know how not to be tense right now, but Adrian's hand came up to cradle their daughter's head with devastating gentleness. She's so small. She's tougher than she looks. She'd have to be. Adrian's thumb stroked across the baby's back in slow, soothing circles. With parents like us. Lena watched them together. This powerful, dangerous man holding their tiny daughter like she was made of spun glass and dreams. Something shifted in her chest, some wall she'd built beginning to crack. We need to name her, she said. Adrian's gaze lifted to meet hers. I know. I was thinking, Lena hesitated. What was your mother's name? The question clearly caught him off guard. Elena? Why? I thought maybe, if you wanted, we could give our daughter a piece of her grandmother. Lena watched his face carefully. But only if you think it's appropriate. I don't want to bring up painful. Elena Grace. Adrian's voice was rough. If you're agreeable to Grace as a middle name. After my grandmother. Lena felt tears prick her eyes. Yes, I'm agreeable. Elena Grace Volkov. Adrian tested the name, looking down at their daughter. What do you think, little one? Does that suit you? The baby, Elena, made a small sound that might have been agreement or might have been gas, and both her parents laughed. It was the first moment of genuine, uncomplicated joy they'd shared since Lena had walked back into Adrian's life. But it couldn't last. Lena saw the shift in Adrian's expression before he spoke, the way his body tensed, his eyes going sharp and assessing as they locked on something over her shoulder. What's wrong? She asked. Don't turn around. His voice was low, dangerous. But there's a man in a gray jacket by the nurse's station. He's been watching us for the past 5 minutes. Ice slid down Lena's spine. Security? No, wrong body language. Adrian's hand moved to his phone, texting with one hand while still cradling Elena with the other. He's carrying left hip, and he's not trying very hard to be subtle about his surveillance. Oh, Adrian, what did you do? Fear sharpened Lena's voice. Who would be watching us? I don't know. But the tension in his jaw said he had suspicions. But I'm about to find out. Don't. Lena reached for his arm. Don't make a scene, not here, not with Mr. Volkov. Patricia appeared beside them, her expression professional, but her eyes alert. There's a situation at the nurses' station that requires your attention. It wasn't a request. Adrian looked at Lena, then at Elena, sleeping peacefully against his chest. Take her, he said quietly, already starting to shift the baby. Adrian, take her, Lena, and stay here. Don't come out until I send Patricia back for you. The transfer was quick and careful, and then Adrian was on his feet, his entire demeanor shifting from gentle father to something cold and lethal. He followed Patricia toward the nurses' station, and Lena watched with her heart in her throat as he approached the man in the gray jacket. The conversation was too quiet to hear, but Lena could read body language well enough. The stranger's hand moved toward his hip. Adrian's hand shot out faster, gripping the man's wrist with enough force to make him freeze. Words were exchanged, sharp, clipped, deadly. Then hospital security arrived, summoned by Patricia or someone else monitoring the situation. The man in the gray jacket was escorted out, still protesting, and Adrian stood watching until he disappeared from view. When he returned to Lena, his expression was carved from stone. We need to leave, he said. Now. What? No. I'm not leaving Elena. The NICU is the safest place in this hospital. Armed guards at every entrance, cameras everywhere, strict visitor protocols. Adrian was already texting rapidly, his thumbs flying across the screen. But you're vulnerable. You need to be somewhere secure. Who was that man? Lena demanded. No one. A reporter trying to get photos for some tabloid trash. You're lying. Lena clutched Elena closer. I can tell when you're lying, Adrian. Who was he really? Adrian's jaw clenched. Someone who works for people I've made angry. And before you ask, no, I don't know which people specifically because the list is extensive. Oh my God. Lena felt the blood drain from her face. This is because of you. Someone's targeting us because of your business, your enemies. I know. The words came out like broken glass. And I'm handling it. Handling it how? By posting guards? By making us prisoners? By keeping you alive? Adrian's voice cracked with the force of his emotion before he reined it back in. I'm sorry. I'm sorry this is happening, and I'm sorry it's my fault. But right now I need you to trust me. Can you do that? Lena looked down at Elena, sleeping peacefully in her arms, unaware of the danger circling her family. Do I have a choice? She whispered. There's always a choice. Adrian's hand came up to cup her face, thumb brushing across her cheekbone. You can walk away right now. Take Elena when she's released, disappear the way you did before. I'll make sure you have enough money to stay hidden forever, and I'll draw every threat away from you. And you? I'll handle my enemies the way I always have. His smile was cold and sharp. Permanently. That's not a solution, Adrian. That's just more violence. Violence is the language my world speaks. He pulled back, the mask sliding into place. But you don't have to be part of that world anymore. You can choose safety, for yourself and Elena. Lena studied his face, seeing past the armor to the man beneath, the one who'd cradled their daughter with shaking hands, who'd promised to be better, who was offering her an escape even though it was clearly killing him. No, she said. Adrian blinked. No? I'm not running again. Lena's grip on Elena tightened. I'm not raising our daughter to believe that love means leaving when things get hard. I'm not teaching her that her father is someone to fear instead of someone to trust. Lena, but you need to fix this. Her voice was steel-wrapped in exhaustion. Not with violence. Not by making enemies disappear. You need to actually fix whatever part of your business is putting Elena in danger. That could mean walking away from everything I've built. Then walk away. Lena met his gaze steadily. Because you told me Elena is who you are now. You told me everything else is just noise. So prove it. The words hung between them like a challenge. Adrian stared at her for a long moment, emotions flickering across his face too fast to name. Then he nodded, slow and deliberate. "Okay," he said. "I'll fix it." "How?" "I have no idea." A ghost of a smile crossed his face. "But I'll figure it out, starting with getting you somewhere actually secure while I work." "The hotel, that isn't good enough, not anymore." Adrian was already moving, gesturing for Patricia to return. "We need to transfer you to a safe house, somewhere with proper security, trained personnel, protocols for this kind of situation." "You mean somewhere I can't leave without permission?" Lena's voice was flat. "I mean somewhere no one can get to you or Elena without going through me first." Adrian's eyes were fierce. "And yes, that means restrictions. It means guards and cameras and feeling trapped. But it also means alive." Lena wanted to argue, wanted to insist there had to be another way, some middle ground between absolute freedom and absolute security. But Elena shifted against her chest, making a small sound in her sleep, and Lena's arguments died in her throat. "How long?" she asked quietly. "A week. Maybe 2. Adrian's voice was gentle. "Just until I can neutralize the immediate threats and restructure my business interests to eliminate the vulnerabilities." "You make it sound so simple." "It's not." He reached out, his hand hovering near Elena's head before dropping. "It's going to be complicated and messy, and possibly the hardest thing I've ever done. But I meant what I said, Lena. Elena is who I am now, and I will burn down everything I built if that's what it takes to keep her safe." "And me?" The question slipped out before Lena could stop it. "Am I part of that equation?" Adrian's gaze locked on hers, intense enough to burn. "You're the whole equation, you and Elena. Everything else is just variables I'm trying to solve for." Lena's breath caught. Patricia cleared her throat delicately. "Mr. Volkov, your security team is here, and Dr. Chen wants to examine Elena before you go." The next 20 minutes were a blur of activity. Dr. Chen performed a quick but thorough examination, declaring Elena stable and progressing well. Patricia showed Lena how to pump breast milk so Elena could continue to receive it even while Lena was away. And Adrian coordinated with a team of serious-looking men in dark suits who swept the NICU, checked exits, and spoke in clipped, efficient tones. Finally, there was nothing left to do but say goodbye. Lena kissed Elena's forehead, breathing in that sweet baby smell that was already as familiar as her own heartbeat. "I'll be back soon, sweet girl, I promise. Mama's not going anywhere." Elena slept on, unaware of the promises being made and broken around her. Adrian's hand found Lena's lower back, guiding her gently but inexorably toward the exit. The security team formed a loose perimeter around them, and Lena felt absurdly like a criminal being escorted from a crime scene. The safe house turned out to be a brownstone in Brooklyn, tucked away on a quiet street that looked almost aggressively normal. Inside, it was less house and more fortress, reinforced doors, bulletproof windows, and enough security equipment to make a paranoid billionaire feel safe. "This is temporary," Adrian said as he showed her through the space. "Just until I can—" "I know." Lena cut him off, too tired to hear the explanations again. "Temporary. Until the threats are neutralized. Until you fix your business. Until we can pretend to be a normal family again." "We're never going to be normal." Adrian's voice was quiet. "You know that, right?" "I know." Lena sank onto a couch that was surprisingly comfortable despite being in a safe house. "I think I've always known. I just kept hoping that I could change." Adrian sat beside her, careful to leave space between them. "I am changing, or trying to. But some parts of who I am, the enemies I've made, the things I've done, those can't be erased, only managed. Is that enough?" Lena looked at him, this man she'd loved and left and somehow ended up bound to forever. "Is managing the damage enough to build a life on?" "I don't know." The honesty in his voice was devastating. "But it's all I have to offer right now. A promise to try, to be better, to put you and Elena first, even when every instinct I have screams to solve problems the way I always have. With violence and control. Yes. No hesitation. Those are the tools I know how to use. Learning new ones is going to take time." Lena leaned her head back against the couch, staring at the ceiling. "I don't know if I'm strong enough for this." "You are. Adrian's hand found hers, lacing their fingers together. "You're the strongest person I've ever met. You survived me, survived leaving me, survived 8 months alone and pregnant and terrified. You can survive this too." "What if I don't want to just survive anymore?" The question came out as a whisper. "What if I want to actually live? To be happy?" "Then we'll figure out how to make that happen." Adrian squeezed her hand. Together. That word again. Together. Lena wanted to believe it was possible, wanted to believe that two broken people could somehow build something whole between them. But belief required hope, and Lena's hope had been running on fumes for so long she wasn't sure she remembered how to refill it. "I'm going to sleep now," she said, pulling her hand from his. "We can talk more tomorrow." Adrian nodded, standing. "There are guards posted outside. You're safe here." "Am I?" Lena met his eyes. "Or am I just in a different kind of cage?" The question hit its mark. Adrian flinched, and for a moment Lena saw straight through to the guilt and self-loathing churning beneath his controlled exterior. "I hope you can forgive me someday," he said quietly. "For all of it." Then he left, and Lena was alone in a fortress built to keep danger out and her in. She made it to the bedroom before the tears came, hard, wrenching sobs that tore through her chest and left her gasping. She cried for Elena, so small and helpless in her isolette. She cried for herself, trapped between love and self-preservation. And she cried for Adrian, trying so hard to be someone different while still being exactly who he'd always been. When the tears finally stopped, Lena lay in the unfamiliar bed and stared at the shadows on the ceiling. Somewhere across the city, her daughter slept surrounded by machines and monitors. Somewhere else, Adrian was probably working, calling in favors, making threats, doing whatever dark things he did to bend the world to his will. And Lena was here, caught between them both, wondering if love was supposed to feel this much like drowning. Her phone buzzed. A text from Adrian. "Get some rest. I'll have updates in the morning." And below it, a photo that made her breath catch. Elena wrapped in her blanket with her tiny fist pressed against her mouth, sleeping peacefully while Nurse Patricia smiled at the camera. Lena saved the photo, staring at her daughter's face until her eyes burned. "I'm going to fix this," she whispered to the empty room. "I don't know how yet, but I'm going to figure out how to give you the life you deserve. One where you don't have to choose between loving your father and being safe. One where you can just be a little girl without the weight of an empire crushing you." It was a promise made in darkness to a baby who couldn't hear it. But Lena meant every word. Tomorrow, she would start asking the hard questions. Tomorrow, she would demand real answers about Adrian's business, his enemies, and exactly what kind of danger was circling their family. Tomorrow, she would stop being passive and start taking control of her own life again. But tonight, she would sleep and dream of a future where together didn't feel like a trap. Morning came too early, announced by pale sunlight filtering through bulletproof glass and the quiet murmur of voices from somewhere downstairs. Lena woke with her body aching in ways that had nothing to do with surgical recovery and everything to do with the emotional exhaustion of the past week. She lay still for a moment, orienting herself to this new reality. Safe house, armed guards, a daughter in the NICU, and a man who was either her salvation or her doom, trying to rewrite the rules of his entire world. Her phone showed 3 missed calls from Adrian, all from the early hours of the morning. No messages, just the calls themselves, like he'd needed to hear her voice but couldn't bring himself to wake her. Lena was still staring at the screen when it buzzed in her hand. "You're awake," Adrian said without preamble. "I can hear it in your breathing." That's not creepy at all. But there was no heat in the words. "Where are you?" "Downstairs. I've been here since 4. He sounded exhausted. "Can you come down? We need to talk." The last time someone had told Lena they needed to talk, she'd ended up in emergency surgery. But she dragged herself out of bed anyway, splashing water on her face and pulling on clothes that were becoming familiar armor against vulnerability. Adrian was in the kitchen, surrounded by papers and looking like he'd aged a decade overnight. His hair stood in wild angles, his shirt was wrinkled, and there were shadows under his eyes that spoke of no sleep and too much coffee. "You look terrible," Lena said. "I feel worse." He gestured to a chair. "Sit, please, and eat something." The guards made breakfast. A plate of eggs and toast sat waiting, still warm. Lena's stomach rebelled at the thought of food, but she forced herself to take a bite anyway. Dr. Rashid's lectures about nutrition and healing were still fresh in her mind. "Tell me," she said between bites. "Everything. No more half-truths or protective lies. I want to know exactly what kind of danger we're in." Adrian was quiet for a long moment, studying her face like he was searching for something. Then he pushed one of the papers toward her. "This is Viktor Kozlov. He runs the Southside operation. Gambling, protection, some light trafficking in stolen goods. We've had an understanding for 5 years. I stay out of his territory, he stays out of mine." Lena looked at the surveillance photo of a hard-faced man in his 50s. And 3 months ago, I discovered he'd been skimming from our joint ventures. Not much, just enough to test if I was paying attention. Adrian's voice was flat, emotionless. I confronted him. He got defensive. Things escalated. Escalated how? I cut him out of the ventures completely. Redistributed his territory among 3 smaller operators who've been trying to move up. Effectively, I destroyed his power base in a single night. Lena set down her fork. And now he wants revenge. Now he wants blood. Adrian pushed another photo toward her, this one of the man from the hospital, the one in the gray jacket. That's Alexei Petrov, one of Viktor's enforcers. He was at the hospital to send a message. To let me know that Viktor knows about you and Elena. I slid down Lena's spine. What kind of message? The kind that says he can get to you anytime he wants. That no amount of security will keep you safe if he decides to strike. Adrian's hands clenched into fists. It's psychological warfare. He wants me scared, desperate, making mistakes. Is it working? Yes. The admission seemed to cost him. I haven't been this terrified since the night you left, and I thought I'd lost you forever. The idea that someone might hurt you or Elena because of me. His voice cracked. I can't think straight, can't strategize. All I can do is put guards around you and pray it's enough. Lena had never seen Adrian this raw, this vulnerable. The man who commanded empires with a word was coming apart at the seams, and it was both terrifying and oddly humanizing. What are our options? She asked quietly. 3. Adrian started ticking them off on his fingers. 1. I go to war with Viktor, bring every resource I have to bear, destroy him and everyone loyal to him. It's what I would have done 6 months ago. Quick, brutal, effective. But war means casualties, collateral damage, and you and Elena are perfect targets for anyone looking to hurt me. He met her gaze. I can't protect you if I'm busy fighting on multiple fronts. Option 2? Negotiate. Find out what Viktor wants, money, territory, an apology, and give it to him. Buy peace. You don't sound convinced that would work. Because it wouldn't. Adrian's voice was bitter. I humiliated him, took everything he'd built and handed it to his rivals. Money won't fix that. Only blood will. Lena's hands trembled as she picked up her coffee cup. And option 3? I walk away. The words fell like stones. From all of it, the business, the territory, the power. I liquidate everything I can, set up trust for the people who've been loyal to me, and disappear. Take you and Elena somewhere Viktor can't reach us, somewhere we can start over completely. The silence that followed was deafening. Lena stared at Adrian, searching his face for any hint of deception or manipulation. But all she saw was exhausted sincerity, a man who'd spent all night trying to find a solution that didn't end with the people he loved in danger. You'd actually do that? She whispered. Give up everything you've built? For you and Elena? Yes. No hesitation. I told you, you're the equation now. Everything else is just variables. But your empire, your reputation, everything you've worked for, means nothing if you're not safe. Adrian reached across the table, his hand covering hers. I've spent my entire adult life building power because I never wanted to be helpless again. Never wanted to be the scared kid watching his mother get dragged away, unable to stop it. But the thing about power is that it makes you a target, and I won't let you and Elena pay the price for my ambition. Lena felt tears burning in her eyes. Walking away won't make you happy. Being with you and Elena will make me happy. Everything else is negotiable. Adrian, I mean it, Lena. His grip tightened on her hand. I've already started making calls. Henderson is drawing up the paperwork to transfer my legitimate businesses into a blind trust. My other holdings, the ones that operate in gray areas, I'm selling them off to people who can handle the heat. Within a month, I'll be completely out. A month? Lena's voice was faint. You can't dismantle an empire in a month. Watch me. There was steel beneath the exhaustion. I'm done half measures, done trying to have it both ways. I choose you. I choose Elena. And I choose a life where I don't have to sleep with one eye open, waiting for enemies to strike. Lena pulled her hand away, standing abruptly despite the protest of healing muscles. She paced to the window, staring out at the quiet Brooklyn street that could have been anywhere, could have been normal if not for the armed guard she could just barely see in her peripheral vision. What if I don't want you to give it all up? She asked. Adrian went very still. What? What if I don't want to be the reason you tear down everything you are? Lena turned to face him. What if I can't live with that kind of sacrifice? Knowing that you gave up your entire identity for me? It's not a sacrifice. It's a choice. It's the same thing. Lena's voice was raw. And it puts all the weight on me. If we fail, if this doesn't work, if we can't make a life together after all, then you'll have given up everything for nothing. We won't fail. You can't know that. Lena crossed her arms, trying to hold herself together. You can't guarantee that love will be enough, that we won't destroy each other anyway, just in different ways. Adrian stood, moving toward her with careful steps like he was approaching a wounded animal. Then what do you want me to do? Stay in the business? Keep putting you in danger? I want you to find a middle ground. The words burst out of her. I want you to be smart about this instead of making grand gestures that might feel good in the moment, but leave you bitter and resentful 10 years from now. There is no middle ground with Victor. Either I fight or I run. Those are the only options. Then fight smarter. Lena met his gaze steadily. You said he wants blood because you humiliated him, so stop humiliating him. Give him back his dignity along with a way out that doesn't end with all of us dead. Adrian stared at her like she'd spoken a foreign language. You want me to apologize to the man who sent someone to threaten our daughter? I want you to outthink him instead of outmuscle him. Lena moved closer, close enough to see the gold flecks in his blue eyes. You're the smartest person I know, Adrian. When you're not operating from fear or anger, you can see solutions no one else can. So stop being scared for 5 minutes and start being strategic. Something shifted in Adrian's expression, the businessman reasserting itself over the terrified father. What are you suggesting? I'm suggesting you find out what Victor actually wants. Not what you think he wants, but what he really needs to feel whole again. Lena's mind was racing now, piecing together fragments of conversations she'd overheard during her marriage, business principles Adrian had explained during quiet dinners. You took his territory and gave it to rivals. That's a problem of power and respect. So give him different power, different respect, something he values more than revenge. Adrian's eyes sharpened. You're thinking partnership. I'm thinking you find a way to make him more valuable as an ally than as an enemy. You're good at that. You've done it dozens of times with other rivals. Those rivals hadn't threatened my family. No, but they'd done other things you considered unforgivable. And you still found ways to work with them when it served both your interests. Lena could see the wheels turning in Adrian's head, the fear slowly being replaced by calculation. What does Victor have that you need? What leverage points exist that you haven't been willing to use because you were too angry to see them? Adrian was quiet for a long moment, his gaze distant as he worked through possibilities. When he finally spoke, his voice was thoughtful instead of desperate. Victor has connections in Eastern Europe that I've been trying to establish for years. Supply chains, distribution networks, political contacts. I've been building my own from scratch, but it's slow and expensive. And if you partnered with him instead, I'd have instant access to markets worth hundreds of millions. Adrian's tone was clinical now, all business. But that means trusting him, working closely with someone who just threatened you and Elena. It means making him invested in our survival. Lena pressed her advantage. If his fortune is tied to yours, if hurting us means hurting himself, then we're safer than we'd ever be behind walls and guards. It's a risk. Everything is a risk. Lena reached up, her hand cupping his face. But this risk lets you keep your empire and keep us safe. It lets you be who you are without sacrificing everything for who you think I need you to be. Adrian's hand covered hers, holding it against his cheek. When did you get so ruthless? I learned from the best. A ghost of a smile crossed her face. You taught me that survival isn't about running from danger. It's about making danger work for you. I taught you too well. Maybe. Lena's smile faded. But I'm tired of running, Adrian. And I'm tired of watching you tear yourself apart trying to be something you're not. So let's try being smart instead of safe, strategic instead of scared. Adrian pulled her closer, careful of her healing incision, until her forehead rested against his chest. She could hear his heartbeat, fast and strong, and feel the tension slowly draining from his body. This could backfire spectacularly, he murmured against her hair. Then we'll deal with it together. Lena's arms came up around his waist. But at least we'll be dealing with it as partners instead of as a man trying to save someone who doesn't want to be saved. I do want to save you. I know. Lena pulled back enough to look up at him. But I don't need saving. I need an equal. Someone who respects me enough to include me in the decisions that affect our lives. Even the dangerous ones? Especially the dangerous ones. Lena's voice was firm. I'm not going to be the delicate flower you keep in a gilded cage while you handle all the scary parts of life. If we're doing this, really doing this, then I need to understand your world. All of it. Including the parts you've been hiding from me. Adrian searched her face for a long moment. Then he nodded, slow and deliberate. Okay, he said. No more hiding. No more protecting you from ugly truths. We do this together, as equals. Together, Lena agreed. Adrian's phone buzzed, shattering the moment. He glanced at the screen and his expression tightened. It's Henderson. He's arranged a meeting with Victor for this afternoon. That was fast. I may have already started making overtures while you were asleep. Adrian had the grace to look slightly guilty. I was preparing for option 2 before I was fully committed to it. Always planning 3 moves ahead. Lena shook her head, but there was fondness in it. I'm coming with you. Absolutely not. We just agreed. We just agreed to be partners and equals, which means I get to tell you when something is genuinely too dangerous. Adrian's voice was firm. Meeting with Victor is a delicate negotiation that could go sideways in a heartbeat. I need to be focused on him, not worried about keeping you safe if things turn violent. So you admit it might turn violent. Everything might turn violent in my world. That's why I'm trying to get out of it. Adrian cupped her face in his hands. Trust me to handle this. Please. Let me do this one thing without you watching, and I swear I'll tell you everything that happens the moment I get back. Lena wanted to argue. Every instinct screamed that letting Adrian walk into danger alone was a mistake, that she should be there to make sure he didn't revert to old patterns when challenged. But she could also see the fear beneath his determination, not fear of Victor, but fear of failing her again, of making the wrong choice and watching everything crumble. Fine, she said finally, but you call me the moment it's done, and if you're not back by 6, I'm coming to find you. Deal. Adrian pressed a kiss to her forehead. Thank you for trusting me. I'm trusting you to be smart, not safe, Lena corrected. There's a difference. I know. He pulled back, already shifting into the persona he wore for business, confident, calculating, dangerous. I'll have additional guards posted here while I'm gone. And Lena? Yes? If anything happens, if anyone tries to get to you, you run. Don't try to be brave or strategic. Just run and call me. Adrian, promise me. His eyes were fierce. Promise me you'll put Elena first, even if it means leaving me behind. The request hung between them, heavy with implications. I promise, Lena whispered. Adrian kissed her then, hard and desperate, like he was trying to pour every unspoken emotion into that single point of contact. When he pulled away, they were both breathing hard. I'll be back by 6, he said. And when I am, we're going to visit Elena together and tell her about the future we're building for her. Then he was gone, leaving Lena alone with armed guards and the weight of promises made in desperation. The hours that followed were the longest of Lena's life. She tried to rest, to watch television, to do anything that would make time move faster. But her mind kept circling back to Adrian walking into a meeting with a man who wanted him dead, armed with nothing but words and the hope that strategy would triumph over vengeance. At 4 o'clock, her phone rang. The hospital. Miss Carter? Nurse Patricia's voice was warm but professional. I wanted to update you on Elena. She's being moved to an open crib today. No more isolette. Relief flooded through Lena. That's wonderful. It is. And it means you can hold her more easily, feed her without quite so many wires in the way. We were hoping you might come in this evening for her 6 o'clock feeding. I'll be there. Lena was already moving, grabbing her coat. Tell her mama's on her way. She found the head of her security detail, a woman named Marcus with sharp eyes and a no-nonsense attitude, and explained she needed to get to the hospital. Mr. Volkov said you should stay here until he returns, Marcus said carefully. Mr. Volkov isn't here to make that call. Lena's voice was firm. My daughter is being moved to an open crib for the first time, and I'm going to be there for her 6 o'clock feeding. You can come with me and keep me safe, or I can call a taxi and go alone. Your choice. Marcus studied her for a moment, then nodded. We go together. But we follow my security protocols, understood? Understood. The drive to the hospital was tense, Marcus constantly scanning for threats, while Lena tried to contain her excitement about seeing Elena. An open crib meant her daughter was getting stronger, healing, becoming less fragile and more real with every passing day. The NICU was quiet when they arrived, the evening shift just starting their rounds. Lena scrubbed in with practiced efficiency, and her breath caught when she saw Elena for the first time without the isolette walls between them. Hi, baby girl. Lena reached in, lifting her daughter with careful hands. Elena was still tiny, still attached to monitors, but she felt more solid somehow, more present. Mama's here. Elena's eyes opened, unfocused but aware, and Lena felt her heart crack open all over again. You're getting so strong, she murmured, settling into the rocking chair with Elena cradled against her chest. So brave and fierce, just like your daddy. She's been asking for you. Patricia appeared with a bottle, smiling. Well, not asking exactly, but she's been fussy all afternoon, like she knew something big was happening. Lena took the bottle, positioning it carefully. Elena latched on with surprising vigor, her tiny hands coming up to grasp Lena's finger. That's my girl, Lena whispered. You eat and grow strong, and when you're ready, we're going to take you home. Your daddy's working on making sure home is safe for you. And Mama's going to make sure it's full of love. She was so focused on Elena that she didn't hear the commotion at the NICU entrance until it was too late. Raised voices, the sound of a struggle. Then Marcus's voice, sharp and commanding. Sir, you can't go in there without... The double doors burst open. Viktor Kozlov stood in the entrance, flanked by two men who looked like they ate broken glass for breakfast. He was older than his surveillance photo, his face lined with years of violence and calculation, but his eyes were sharp as he scanned the NICU, landing on Lena with predatory focus. Ms. Carter. His accent was thick, Eastern European. We need to talk. Lena's arms tightened protectively around Elena, her heart suddenly thundering. Get out! This is a hospital. You can't... I can do whatever I want. Viktor moved further into the room, his men spreading out to block the exits. And right now, I want to make sure you understand what's at stake in the negotiation happening between your lover and me. He's not my lover, he's my... Lena stopped, unsure what word to use. Husband felt wrong, partner felt inadequate. It doesn't matter what he is. You need to leave before I call security. Security is currently detained. Viktor's smile was cold. Don't worry, no one's hurt, just delayed. Long enough for us to have a conversation. Patricia moved between Viktor and Lena, her expression fierce despite the fear Lena could see in her eyes. This is a neonatal intensive care unit. These babies are fighting for their lives. Whatever business you have, take it somewhere else. The business concerns this baby specifically. Viktor's gaze never left Lena. And her mother, who I'm told has quite the influence over Adrian Volkov's decision-making lately. I'm calling the police. Patricia already had her phone out. Go ahead. Viktor shrugged. But by the time they arrive, this conversation will be over, one way or another. Lena's mind raced, trying to process what was happening. Adrian was supposed to be meeting with Viktor. This wasn't supposed to happen. Unless the meeting was a trap, she said slowly. You never intended to negotiate. You just wanted Adrian distracted so you could get to me. Viktor's smile widened. Very good. I can see why he values you. You're clever. What do you want? I want Adrian Volkov to understand that his money and power mean nothing when it comes to protecting the people he loves. Victor took another step closer, and one of his men moved to intercept Patricia's phone call, plucking the device from her hand with casual cruelty. I want him to feel helpless, desperate, the way I felt when he destroyed everything I built. So this is just revenge. Lena's voice was steady despite the terror racing through her veins. You're not here to negotiate or make deals. You're here to hurt me to hurt him. Oh, I'm not going to hurt you. Victor's expression shifted, becoming almost regretful. That would be too quick, too clean. No, I'm simply going to take your daughter and disappear, raise her as my own, let Adrian spend the rest of his life knowing she's out there somewhere but never being able to find her. The world stopped. Lena stared at Victor, her arms instinctively tightening around Elena until the baby made a small sound of protest. You're insane, she whispered. I'm efficient. Victor gestured to one of his men. Take the child. Everything happened at once. Patricia lunged for the emergency alarm, her hand slamming down on the red button that would flood the NICU with security. Marcus burst through the doors, weapon drawn, shouting commands, and Lena moved on pure instinct, turning her body to shield Elena while her mind screamed that this couldn't be happening, couldn't be real. The man Victor had gestured to reached for Elena, and Adrian Volkov appeared out of nowhere, his fist connecting with the man's jaw with enough force to send him crashing into a bank of monitors. Touch my daughter, Adrian said, his voice devoid of all emotion, and I will make you pray for death. Victor spun, and for the first time, Lena saw genuine surprise on his face. How did you think I'd walk into a meeting with you without insurance? Adrian moved to stand between Victor and Lena, his body a wall of controlled fury. I had 3 teams tracking every person in your organization. The moment your men moved on the hospital, I knew. Then you know you're outnumbered. Victor's composure was returning. My people are everywhere. You can't protect them all. I don't have to. Adrian's hand moved to his pocket, withdrawing his phone. I just have to make one call, and every asset you have, every account, every property, every loyalty you've bought, disappears. I've spent the last 3 hours putting the pieces in place. All I need is a reason. You're bluffing. Am I? Adrian's smile was terrible to behold. Try me. Reach for my daughter one more time, and I'll show you exactly how ruthless I can be when someone threatens my family. The standoff stretched, tension coiling tighter with every heartbeat. Then hospital security flooded in, weapons drawn, and Victor's men found themselves surrounded. Victor himself stood frozen, calculating odds and finding them suddenly insurmountable. This isn't over, he said quietly. Yes, Adrian replied, his voice like ice. It is. Because I'm about to give you a choice, Victor. Walk away now, tonight, and live. Stay in this city, keep coming after my family, and I will erase you so thoroughly that no one will remember you ever existed. You can't. I can. And I will. Adrian's gaze was merciless. And here's where it gets interesting. You can accept the partnership I was going to offer you before you decided to be stupid. Full access to my Eastern European operations, 50-50 profit split, and enough legitimate business to make you richer than revenge ever could. Victor's eyes narrowed. In exchange for? You leave my family alone. Forever. You become the kind of partner I can trust, or you become a cautionary tale. Your choice. Lena watched Victor's face as he processed the offer. She could see the wheels turning, ambition warring with pride, the slow realization that Adrian was offering him a way to save face while getting everything he actually wanted. 50-50, Victor said slowly. And I maintain control of my current operations? Within reason. We negotiate the details tomorrow. Tonight, you leave. And you never... Adrian's voice dropped to something deadly. Never come near my wife or daughter again. The word wife hung in the air, a claim Adrian had no right to make but that Lena found she didn't want to dispute. Victor looked at Lena, at Elena sleeping peacefully in her arms despite the chaos, then back at Adrian. Deal, he said finally. But Volkov, if you go back on your word, if you try to screw me again, partnership or not, I will burn your world down. Fair enough. Adrian's posture didn't relax. Now get out of my sight before I change my mind about letting you live. Victor left, his men following, and suddenly the NICU was full of security and police and hospital administrators demanding explanations. Through it all, Adrian stood beside Lena and Elena, a solid presence that made Lena's hands finally stop shaking. "You called me your wife," she said quietly, once the immediate chaos had died down. Adrian looked down at her, and the raw emotion in his eyes nearly undid her. "I know. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have. I didn't say I minded." Lena met his gaze steadily. "Just that you said it." Understanding dawned in Adrian's expression, followed by something that looked like hope. "Lena, take us home," she interrupted. "All three of us. I want to get Elena out of here, away from all this. I want to go somewhere safe and figure out what comes next. Elena can't leave for another week at least. Then we stay with her. Here, or wherever Dr. Rashid says is best. But together. No more separate lives. No more avoiding each other. If we're doing this, we do it right." Adrian's hand came up to cup her face, thumb brushing across her cheekbone. "Are we doing this? Really?" Lena thought about all the reasons to say no. About the danger and the control and the fact that loving Adrian Volkov would never be simple or safe. Then she looked down at Elena, sleeping peacefully against her chest, and thought about the man who'd moved heaven and earth to protect them both. Who'd offered his greatest enemy a fortune to keep them safe. Who was trying, however imperfectly, to be better than he'd been. "Yes," she said. "We're really doing this." Adrian kissed her then, gentle and reverent, like she was something precious he was afraid to break. And for the first time since Lena had walked back into his life, she let herself believe they might actually survive each other. The next 10 days existed in a strange bubble outside normal time. Adrian moved into the suite at the Carlisle, taking the second bedroom and treating the shared space with the careful courtesy of a man walking on eggshells. They fell into a rhythm born of necessity and Elena's demanding schedule. Early morning visits to the NICU before Adrian disappeared to handle business, afternoon feedings where they took turns holding their daughter, evenings spent in quiet conversation that slowly began to chip away at the walls between them. Lena watched him transform in small, incremental ways. The sharp edges of Adrian Volkov, feared power broker, began to soften into something more human. He learned to change diapers with fumbling determination, to warm bottles to the exact temperature Elena preferred, to hold her against his chest during the long nights when she was fussy and needed the steady rhythm of a heartbeat to calm her. "You're getting good at this," Lena observed one evening, watching Adrian pace the NICU with Elena tucked against his shoulder, her tiny body rising and falling with his careful breathing. "I'm terrified every second that I'm going to break her," Adrian admitted, his voice low so as not to wake the other babies in the unit. "She's so small, Lena. Every time I pick her up, I'm convinced this will be the time I do something wrong." "That's called being a parent." Lena moved to stand beside him, her hand coming to rest on Elena's back. "The fear never goes away. You just learn to work around it." "How are you so calm about all this?" Adrian's eyes were full of wonder and exhaustion in equal measure. "You're healing from surgery, dealing with everything I put you through, and somehow you make motherhood look effortless." "It's not effortless." Lena's laugh was tired but genuine. "I cry in the shower at least once a day. I panic every time her monitor beeps. And I have no idea what I'm doing most of the time. I'm just better at hiding it than you are." "I don't believe that." "Believe it." Lena leaned her head against his arm, too tired to maintain the distance she'd been trying to keep. "We're both making this up as we go. The only difference is you're used to being an expert at everything, and I'm used to fumbling through life hoping it works out." Adrian was quiet for a moment, adjusting his hold on Elena with the kind of careful attention he usually reserved for multi-million-dollar negotiations. "The partnership with Victor is finalized," he said finally. "Henderson and his lawyers spent the last week going through every clause, every contingency. It's airtight." "And you trust him to honor it?" "I trust that he values money more than revenge, and this partnership will make him wealthier than he's ever been." Adrian's voice held a note of grim satisfaction. "He also knows that the moment he breaks our agreement, I have enough leverage to destroy him 3 times over. Mutually assured destruction makes for reliable peace." That's a very Adrian way of looking at the world. "It's the only way I know." He glanced down at her. "Are you disappointed?" "In what?" That I didn't walk away completely. That I'm still Adrian Volkov, still playing power games and making deals with dangerous men. Lena considered the question carefully. 2 weeks ago, she might have said yes. Might have wanted him to be someone completely different, someone safe and simple who lived a life with no shadows. But watching him hold their daughter with such desperate tenderness, seeing him try so hard to be both the man he was and the father Elena needed, Lena had realized something fundamental. She didn't want Adrian to stop being himself. She just wanted him to choose them first. "No," she said quietly. "I'm not disappointed. You found a solution that keeps us safe without destroying who you are. That's what I asked for. You asked for partnership, for equality, and you're giving it to me." Lena pulled back enough to look up at him. "You could have made that deal with Victor without consulting me. Could have handled everything behind my back the way you used to. But you didn't. You told me what you were planning, listened when I had suggestions, and made me part of the process. That's what matters." Adrian's expression was unreadable in the soft light of the NICU. "I'm going to mess this up," he said. "At some point, I'm going to revert to old habits, try to control things, make decisions without you, push too hard because I'm scared of losing you." "I know. And when that happens, I'll call you on it." Lena's voice was firm. "I'll remind you that we're partners, and I'll expect you to do better, but I'm not going to run the first time you make a mistake, Adrian. I did that once. I'm not doing it again." "Why not?" The question came out raw. "After everything I've put you through, why are you willing to stay?" Lena looked down at Elena, sleeping peacefully against Adrian's chest, her tiny hand fisted in his shirt. "Because she deserves to know her father, and because I think—" She paused, gathering courage. "I think maybe I never stopped loving you. I just got really good at pretending I didn't." Adrian's breath caught. "Lena, don't." She held up a hand. Don't say anything right now. We're both exhausted, running on adrenaline and fear and hope. Let's take it one day at a time, like we agreed." "One day at a time," Adrian echoed, then softer. "But for the record, I never stopped loving you either. Not for a single moment of the 8 months you were gone." The confession hung between them, vulnerable and terrifying and achingly honest. Before Lena could respond, Dr. Chen appeared with her usual brisk efficiency. "Good news," she announced, checking Elena's chart. "This young lady has been maintaining her temperature perfectly, taking all her feedings, and her weight is up another 2 ounces. I think we can start talking about discharge." Lena's heart leaped. "Really? When?" "If she continues progressing at this rate, maybe 3 more days." Dr. Chen smiled at their obvious joy. "Of course, she'll need to pass her car seat test, and you'll need to complete infant CPR training, and we'll want to make sure you have all the equipment you need at home. We'll have everything." Adrian's voice was absolute. "Whatever she needs, whatever makes her safe. Cost is no object." Dr. Chen's smile turned knowing. "I figured you'd say that, Mr. Volkov. I'll have the discharge coordinator reach out tomorrow to go over the checklist." She left, and Lena and Adrian stared at each other with matching expressions of terror and elation. 3 days, Lena whispered. "We're taking her home in 3 days." "We don't have a home." Adrian's practicality reasserted itself. "The suite at the Carlisle isn't suitable for long-term living with an infant. We need somewhere permanent. I still have my apartment in Queens." "The 4th floor walk-up with no heat?" Adrian's voice was carefully neutral. "Lena, I'm not trying to control you, but that's not safe for Elena, or for you while you're still healing." "So what are you suggesting?" Adrian was quiet for a moment, still swaying gently with Elena. "Move in with me, not as a trap or a cage, as a practical solution to a practical problem. The penthouse has more than enough room, round-the-clock security, and everything Elena could possibly need. You'd have your own space, your own life. He struggled for words. "I just want to be there. To wake up under the same roof as both of you, to not miss a single moment of her growing up." "And us?" Lena's voice was barely audible. "What happens with us if I move in?" "Whatever you want to happen." Adrian met her gaze steadily. "If you want separate bedrooms and a co-parenting arrangement, I can live with that. If you want to try again, really try as equals, I'm ready for that too. And if you need time to figure out which one you want, I'll wait. I'm good at waiting when it matters." Lena thought about the penthouse she'd fled 8 months ago, the place that had felt like a beautiful prison. But she also thought about how she'd changed since then, how she'd learned to stand up for herself and demand the respect she deserved. Moving back didn't have to mean surrendering. It could mean choosing to build something new in a familiar space. Okay, she said, we'll try it. But I want it in writing, my own space, my own decisions about work and life and everything else. You don't get to make me a prisoner just because we're under the same roof. Done. Adrian didn't hesitate. Henderson can draw up whatever agreements make you feel safe. I'll sign anything you want, even if it includes clauses about respecting boundaries and consulting me before making major decisions. Especially those. A small smile touched Adrian's lips. You were right, back at the safe house. I'm smarter when I'm not operating from fear, and the smartest thing I can do is trust you to be my partner in all of this. Good answer. Lena allowed herself a smile. Now, give me our daughter. You've been hogging her for the past hour. The transfer was practiced now, both of them working in concert to shift Elena from Adrian's chest to Lena's without waking her. The baby made a small sound of protest, but settled quickly, her warm weight against Lena's heart, a constant reminder of what they were fighting for. The next 3 days passed in a blur of preparation. Henderson appeared with contracts that gave Lena ironclad protections, her own wing of the penthouse, financial independence through a trust Adrian couldn't touch, and legal language that made it clear she could leave at any time without penalty. Adrian signed without reading them, trusting Lena's judgment in a way that felt almost reckless. The penthouse itself was transformed. The cold, masculine space Lena remembered had been softened by a nursery that looked like it belonged in a magazine. All gentle colors and carefully curated furniture that was both beautiful and functional. But more than that, Adrian had made space for her everywhere. Her favorite books on the shelves, her photos on the walls, her preferences built into every decision. How did you do all this in 3 days? Lena asked, walking through the transformed space with wonder. I had help. Adrian looked almost embarrassed. I hired a designer who specializes in making spaces feel like home instead of showrooms. Told her about you, your tastes, your needs, what makes you comfortable. She did the rest. You hired someone to make me feel at home? I hired someone to make sure this place felt like ours instead of mine. Adrian's hand found hers, because that's what it is now, ours, yours and mine and Elena's. Lena looked around at the evidence of his effort, the comfortable reading nook by the windows, the kitchen stocked with her favorite foods, the art on the walls that reflected her aesthetic instead of his. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't what she would have chosen if left to her own devices, but it was thoughtful in a way that made her chest ache. Thank you, she said quietly. Don't thank me yet. Adrian's voice held a note of nervousness. Wait until we've lived here for a month and you're sick of me hovering. I'm already sick of you hovering. Then this should be familiar territory. They brought Elena home on a Thursday afternoon, 3 weeks and 2 days after her dramatic entrance into the world. The car ride from the hospital was tense, both Adrian and Lena hyper-aware of the precious cargo in the back seat. Adrian drove 10 miles below the speed limit, taking turns with exaggerated care, and Lena kept twisting around to check on Elena every 30 seconds. She's fine, Adrian said for the 5th time. I know, I just need to see her. She's literally 3 feet behind you. She hasn't moved since we strapped her in. I know, I'm being irrational. You're being a mother. Adrian's hand found hers across the console. It's allowed. The penthouse felt different with Elena in it. Suddenly, the massive space seemed both too big and too small. Too big for a tiny baby to get lost in, too small to contain the overwhelming love and fear that came with her. They settled into a routine almost immediately, driven by Elena's demanding schedule. Feedings every 3 hours, diaper changes that felt constant, and the particular brand of exhaustion that came from never sleeping more than 90 minutes at a stretch. Adrian insisted on taking the night shift. You're still healing, he argued when Lena protested. You need actual sleep, not 20-minute naps between feedings. And you need to run an empire. You can't do that on no sleep. Watch me. So they compromised. Lena took the early evening feedings, Adrian handled midnight to 6, and they both stumbled through the day in a fog of caffeine and determination. It was exhausting. It was terrifying. It was the happiest Lena had been in years. 2 weeks after bringing Elena home, Lena woke at 3 in the morning and realized the penthouse was quiet. Too quiet. She shot out of bed, panic clawing through her chest, and ran for the nursery. The sight that greeted her made her stop in the doorway. Adrian sat in the rocking chair with Elena against his bare chest, both of them asleep. His head was tilted back, mouth slightly open, looking more relaxed than Elena had ever seen him. Elena was sprawled across his torso like a tiny, perfect starfish, her rosebud mouth making small, sucking motions in her sleep. Lena's heart cracked open. This was the man she'd run from, the one who'd scared her with his intensity and his need for control. But it was also the man who woke up 3 times a night to feed their daughter, who sang off-key lullabies when she was fussy, who looked at Elena like she'd hung the moon and stars. People could change. Adrian was living proof. Are you just going to stand there staring, or are you going to help me up without waking her? Adrian's voice was rough with sleep, but his eyes were open and full of gentle amusement. How long have you been awake? Long enough to feel you watching us. He shifted carefully, protecting Elena's head with one large hand. She fought sleep for an hour, so I gave up on the crib and just held her. You're going to spoil her. Good. Adrian's smile was soft. She deserves to be spoiled, to grow up knowing she's loved and wanted and protected. Lena moved into the room, perching on the ottoman beside the rocking chair. We should talk about the future, real plans, not just day-to-day survival. Okay? Adrian's free hand found hers. What are you thinking? I want to go back to school. The words came out in a rush. I never finished my degree, and I want Elena to grow up seeing her mother work for things, accomplish goals, be more than just someone's wife or someone's mother. What do you want to study? Social work, maybe? Or early childhood education? Something that helps people. Lena watched his face carefully for signs of dismissal or condescension. I know it's not glamorous, and it won't make the kind of money you're used to. It's perfect. Adrian's voice was firm. You'd be incredible at it, and Elena would be lucky to have a mother who teaches her that success isn't measured in money. You mean that? Every word. He squeezed her hand. I'll support you however you need. Tuition, childcare, whatever it takes. This is your dream. I'm not going to stand in the way of it. Lena felt tears prick her eyes. Thank you. Don't thank me for doing what any decent partner would do. Adrian's gaze was steady. I meant what I said, Lena. We're equals in this. Your dreams matter just as much as mine. What about your dreams? Lena asked. What does Adrian Volkov want for the future? Adrian looked down at Elena, his expression contemplating. Honestly, I want this. I want to wake up at 3 in the morning holding my daughter. I want to watch her grow up, teach her things, embarrass her when she's a teenager by being an overprotective dad. I want to build something with you that's real and honest and nothing like the empire I spent years creating. You're not giving up your business, though. No. Adrian's voice was thoughtful. But I'm reshaping it. The partnership with Victor is just the start. I'm moving everything toward legitimate operations, real estate development, tech investments, venture capital, things I can be proud to tell Elena about when she's old enough to ask what her father does. That's a big change. It's necessary. Adrian met her gaze. I don't want to be the kind of father who operates in shadows. I want to be someone she can look up to, someone she's proud to introduce to her friends. She's 3 weeks old. You have time before friend introductions become an issue. I know, but I want to be ready when they do. Adrian shifted Elena slightly, making sure she was comfortable. I'm trying to be better, Lena, every day. Not perfect. I know I'll never be perfect, but better than I was yesterday. Lena leaned forward, pressing a kiss to his forehead. You're already better than you think you are. Am I better enough? The question came out vulnerable. Better enough for you to want this permanently? Lena's breath caught. Adrian, I'm not asking you to marry me again. I know we're not ready for that. Adrian's eyes were fierce with emotion. But I'm asking if you can see a future with me. A real one. Not just co-parenting, but actually building a life together. I see it, Lena whispered. I've been seeing it for weeks now. Every time you get up in the middle of the night with her. Every time you ask my opinion before making a decision. Every time you choose us over everything else. Then stay. Adrian's voice cracked. Not because you're scared or trapped or because it's convenient. Stay because you want to, because you love me the way I love you, because you believe we can make this work. Lena looked at him, this complicated, dangerous, achingly tender man who was trying so hard to be worthy of the second chance she'd given him. She thought about all the reasons to say no, all the ways this could still go wrong, but she also thought about Elena sleeping peacefully between them, the family they'd created despite everything. "I'm staying," she said. "I'm staying because I love you, because I want to build a life with you, and because I think—" Her voice broke. "I think maybe we're going to be okay." Adrian's eyes shone with unshed tears. "Yeah? Yeah?" Lena smiled through her own tears. "We're going to fight sometimes. You're going to slip back into old habits, and I'm going to call you on it. We're going to have hard days and moments where we're not sure we can do this, but we're going to be okay. I love you." The words fell from Adrian's lips like a prayer. "I love you so much it terrifies me." "I love you too." Lena leaned in, capturing his lips in a kiss that tasted of hope and promise and new beginnings. "Now, let me take our daughter so you can get some actual sleep." "I'm fine." "You're exhausted, and I'm awake anyway." Lena reached for Elena, lifting her carefully. "Go to bed, Adrian. Real bed, not the rocking chair." Adrian stood, stretching muscles that had clearly cramped from sitting so long in one position. But before he left the nursery, he pulled Lena close, pressing a kiss to her forehead and then to Elena's. "My girls," he murmured. "Both of you. Mine." "Ours," Lena corrected gently. "We belong to each other." "Ours," Adrian agreed. The months that followed were a journey of constant adjustment and discovery. Lena enrolled in online classes, studying during Elena's naps, and late into the night after Adrian took over baby duty. Adrian systematically restructured his business empire, cutting ties with anything that operated in moral gray areas and investing in ventures he could be proud of. They fought sometimes, sharp, honest arguments about boundaries and expectations that they learned to navigate without running. Elena grew. 1 month became 2, then 3, then 6. She smiled for the first time on a Tuesday morning, laughed on a Friday afternoon, and rolled over on a Sunday evening while both her parents watched with ridiculous pride. The Victor partnership proved more successful than either Adrian or Lena had anticipated. The Eastern European ventures flourished, and Victor himself began to transform from dangerous enemy to grudging ally to something that almost resembled friendship. "Never thought I'd see the day Victor Kozlov would bring baby gifts," Lena observed one afternoon, watching the older man attempt to interact with 6-month-old Elena with all the grace of a bull in a china shop. "She has that effect on people." Adrian smiled, watching his daughter gum Victor's finger with determined concentration. "Transforms hardened criminals into doting uncles." "She's going to be so spoiled." "Good." Adrian pulled Lena against his side. "She should be spoiled, loved, given every opportunity we never had." Lena leaned into him, marveling at how natural this felt now, how the man she'd once feared had become her partner in the truest sense. They'd rebuilt their relationship from the ground up, establishing new patterns based on trust and communication instead of control and fear. It wasn't perfect. Adrian still had moments where his instinct was to solve problems by throwing money or power at them. Lena still had moments where she wanted to run instead of staying to fight through difficulties. But they were learning, growing, becoming the people their daughter deserved them to be. 1 year after Elena's birth, Lena graduated with her associate's degree in early childhood education. Adrian threw a party that was simultaneously too lavish and perfectly thoughtful, inviting everyone who'd supported her journey, classmates, professors, and even Dr. Rashid and the NICU staff who'd helped save Elena's life. "I'm proud of you," Adrian said that night, after the guests had left and Elena was asleep in her crib. "Not just for graduating, though that's incredible, but for everything. For being strong enough to leave when you needed to, for being brave enough to come back, for giving me a chance to be better." "You gave yourself that chance," Lena corrected. "I just made space for it. We make a good team. The best." Lena smiled up at him. "Though I should probably tell you, I got accepted to a bachelor's program at Columbia. Full scholarship." Adrian's eyes widened. "Lena, that's amazing. When did you apply?" 3 months ago. I wanted to make sure I got in before I told you, in case she hesitated. In case I tried to control it somehow? Adrian's voice was understanding instead of hurt. I'm glad you protected yourself, and I'm glad you trusted me enough to tell me now. I'll need childcare help. The program is intense and done. Whatever you need. Adrian pulled her close. We'll figure it out together. Together, Lena agreed, letting herself sink into his embrace. It was another year before Adrian asked her to marry him again. They were in the mountains, having driven 3 hours north to a cabin Adrian had purchased specifically because Lena had mentioned once that she'd always wanted to see the leaves change in autumn. Elena was napping in her travel crib, and they were sitting on the porch watching the sun set over trees that blazed with color. I have something for you, Adrian said, pulling a small box from his pocket. Lena's heart stuttered. Adrian, it's not what you think. Or maybe it is, but not the way you're expecting. He opened the box to reveal 2 rings, one a delicate band of gold, the other larger and masculine. I know we're technically still married. The divorce never finalized because of everything that happened with Elena. But I want to do this right. I want to ask you as equals if you'll choose me again. Not because you're trapped or scared or because we have a daughter together, but because you want to build a life with me. Lena stared at the rings, tears already forming. Is this a proposal? It's a renewal, a fresh start. Adrian took her hand. Lena Carter, will you marry me again? Will you take me as your partner, your equal, the man who will spend the rest of his life trying to deserve you? Yes. The word came out choked with emotion. Yes, you ridiculous man. I'll marry you again. Adrian slipped the ring onto her finger, and Lena did the same for him, both of them laughing and crying at the same time. They remarried quietly 2 months later, with only Elena and a handful of close friends as witnesses. No elaborate ceremony, no society photographers, just 2 people who'd found their way back to each other, choosing to make it permanent. The years that followed were full of the ordinary chaos of life. Lena earned her bachelor's degree, then her master's, eventually becoming a child advocate who worked with families in crisis. Adrian continued reshaping his empire into something legitimate and ethical, mentoring young entrepreneurs and investing in social enterprises that aligned with Lena's values. Elena grew into a bright, fierce little girl who had her mother's stubborn determination and her father's strategic mind. She kept both her parents on their toes, challenging them and loving them in equal measure. She's going to rule the world someday, Lena observed one evening, watching 5-year-old Elena negotiate with Adrian about bedtime with all the skill of a seasoned diplomat. Of course she is. Adrian's voice was full of pride. She's our daughter. World domination is in her blood. Just make sure she uses her powers for good. That's what we're here for. Adrian pulled Lena close, both of them watching their daughter with the kind of fierce love that still sometimes took Lena's breath away. To make sure she knows that power without purpose is just tyranny. When did you get so wise? The day I almost lost you both. Adrian pressed a kiss to her temple. That's when I learned that the only power that matters is the power to choose love over fear, to choose partnership over control, to choose being better over being right. Lena turned in his arms, cupping his face in her hands. I love you, Adrian Volkov. Even when you're infuriating, even when we fight, even always, Adrian finished. I know. I love you even always too. Elena appeared then, climbing into her father's lap with the easy confidence of a child who'd never doubted she was loved. Tell me the story again, she demanded. Which story, little one? The one about how you and Mama found each other again. Elena settled against Adrian's chest, her small hand finding Lena's, about how love is stronger than being scared. Lena and Adrian exchanged a look over their daughter's head, communicating in the wordless language they'd developed over years of partnership. Once upon a time, Adrian began, his voice soft in the gathering darkness, there was a man who thought power could protect him from pain, and a woman who thought running could keep her safe, Lena continued, stroking Elena's hair. But they were both wrong, Elena chimed in, having heard this story dozens of times. Because the only thing that keeps you safe is love. That's right, sweetheart. Adrian's arms tightened around both his girls. The only thing that keeps you safe is love, and the courage to choose it, even when it's scary. Even when it's hard, Lena added. Even when you don't know if it will work, Adrian finished. Elena yawned, her eyes already drifting closed. And they lived happily ever after. Not perfectly, Lena corrected gently, but happily. Because perfect isn't real, but happy is. Happy is, Elena murmured, already half asleep. They sat there together as darkness fell completely, a family forged in fire and fear and fierce determination. They'd traveled impossible distances to find their way back to each other, and the journey had changed them both in fundamental ways. Adrian was no longer the man who controlled through fear and power. He'd learned to lead through integrity and partnership, to build instead of dominate. Lena was no longer the woman who ran from difficulty. She'd learned to stand her ground, to fight for what she wanted, to believe in her own strength. And Elena would grow up knowing that love wasn't about possession or perfection. It was about choosing each other, every single day, even when it was hard. Especially when it was hard. Years later, when Elena was grown and building her own life, she would look back on her childhood and remember this. Being held between her parents in the quiet darkness, safe and loved, and certain that nothing in the world could shake the foundation they'd built together. Because they'd learned the hardest lesson of all, that the only prison that truly binds is the one we build in our own hearts. And the only freedom that matters is the courage to tear down those walls and choose love instead of fear. Adrian and Lena had chosen love. They chose it in the hospital room where their daughter was born too soon. They chose it through negotiations with enemies and midnight feedings and arguments about boundaries. They chose it through graduate degrees and business transformations and the ordinary chaos of building a life together. They chose it every single day. And in the end, that choice was enough to transform everything. Their story wasn't a fairy tale. There were no perfect endings, no guarantees that tomorrow wouldn't bring new challenges. But there was love, fierce and complicated and real. There was partnership built on respect and trust instead of control. There was a daughter who would grow up knowing that her parents fought for each other as hard as they fought for her. And in the quiet moments, when the world settled into stillness and they held each other close, Adrian and Lena knew they'd found something more valuable than any empire, more powerful than any weapon, more lasting than any legacy. They'd found home, not in a place, but in each other. And that was everything.